makes his triumphant return to the airwaves of upstate South Carolina after his 17th and final week of vacation in the year of 2024. No, you had a little jabby jab in the knee, Lonzo. You didn't die. You're good.
No, that's me for 2025. It's not about. I'm not going to die.
God, okay, you were getting a little dark out of the gate.
I'm just going to bring it like that. That's what.
Ladies and gentlemen, the great one hath returned. Lonzo back from his vacation. We would like to thank our boy Ben for coming in and his production efforts. We'd like to thank me for my stellar production efforts as well. But of course, the show is better when the great one is at the controls and he makes his return to us today. Welcome back, bud. How was your new year?
Yesterday it was amazing.
Yeah.
A little bit of something happened.
A little something.
Yeah, a little bit of a beat down happened. Squish duck happened yesterday. Pretty
good God.
That. Yes.
Oregon. What in the absolute horse hockey was that? Ducks?
I don't think it was Oregon.
What the Ducks?
I think it was having to deal with
you guys are playing out of your damn minds right now.
It's because
out of your minds.
It's partially, I do believe, because of the onslaught and all the media attention over Ryan Day.
Whoa. Hold your dad burned horses.
Yeah, I do think it's part of that.
Hold your dad burned horses. I'm not going to disagree that there's a lot of media attention on Ryan Day, but there's a lot of media attention on Ryan Day because a lot of Buckeye fans put it there. And when people like me went, it is absolute Class A certified grade A insanity to want this man gone, and then he does this, we're going to talk about it.
I warned you of this storm a few years ago. I warned you that the continuing losses to Michigan mount up.
No, I agree. But you understand, that's why the media storm was there, because the only people coming into this year going, there's a threat to Ryan Day, were his own fans. Nobody outside of Buckeye fans were saying that.
I got to tell you, this is something familiar, but I think you're seeing what happens when Ohio State is disrespected.
Oh, God, here we go. I was sitting here ready to give your team, I was ready to lavish compliments upon the horse chestnuts. And we're starting with that.
All right. So here's
for the record, again, the only people disrespecting Ryan Day were the Buckeye fans. Nobody outside of them were saying anything about this guy.
Stephen A. Smith, and there was some.
All right, well, you're going to hold that against us?
There were some very loud voices saying he needed to be gone.
Yeah. So. Again, it's the only. Okay, then let me edit my take.
All right. Kids on teams, they watch those shows and things like that, and they hear that stuff. Even though it doesn't bother you or I, it probably bothers them.
Let me edit my take then. The only people who were criticizing Ryan Day, the only people who were talking about Ryan Day needs to lose his job were Buckeye fans and the hot take artist. Stephen A. Smith and a bunch of Buckeye fans who decided that insanely beating Michigan was more important than winning natties. Here's a dude that did not just get your team to the playoffs, but here is a team that took the consensus number one to the bleeping woodshed. Oh, and by the way, that's after taking the third best team in the SEC behind the bleeping woodshed. Your game was the only round one game that I said that's an upset in the making right there. And you had the biggest margin of victory in round one. Then he does this to the Oregon Ducks. This wasn't Tennessee again. This was the consensus number one team in America. He kicked the dog crap out of them. And the only people criticizing Ryan Day were a fringe group of Buckeye fans who have lost their ever-loving minds. Don't put that on us.
Also, I think it's funny how the narrative suddenly is they paid $20 million. They weren't saying that for a while because the Buckeyes lost to Michigan. Suddenly they're winning and doing this, and it's about the money. Did you notice that?
I'm going to disagree.
I wish they paid $50 million. It doesn't mean you're right. It suddenly the narrative was there all day yesterday especially after they started winning.
I'm gonna disagree slightly and say that people were talking about the money when you guys lost to Michigan. It was just LOL, you paid $20 million for that.
No, I think we can laugh about another team who paid a lot of money and didn't win a game. So here's the thing, you can pay all that money, you still got to coach them. You still got to get them out there and get them ready to play. And all but one game, they had them out there and had them ready to play. And the Michigan loss wasn't a blowout, and they should have beat Oregon the first time. But Will Howard, good on your revenge tour. I hope all that stuff is still there. You hope you don't go, okay, we got him, we beat Oregon, then you're done playing because Texas is waiting next week. A tired Texas.
Will Howard is 100% on his Hey America U tour right now. This was a dude coming. And for the record, I will say this. For all of the things that Zoe has said, the media, I'm going to hold myself accountable when accountability matters, which on this show is for all your takes. Going into this Oregon game, I have done exceptionally well in the second round as far as bets and prognostications. First round, I got wiped. But, and I want to talk about that a little bit because I will say this. I think the second round of the playoffs with the Texas-Arizona State game, with the Oregon-Ohio State, what a game that was. That's the best game we've seen since Texas-USC, honestly. Like, it was spectacular.
I really enjoyed, the Ohio State game, but that's because of fans.
For sure.
But yeah.
I think round 2 saved the college football playoffs. I think we all looked after yesterday and went, that's what it's supposed to feel like. But to kind of keep this where we're at for right now, this college football playoffs and what we saw, I'm going to hold myself accountable. Round 1, I had predicted 2 close games, 1 blowout, 1 upset. I predicted the upset of Tennessee over Ohio State. I got that one very wrong. I thought SMU and Indiana were both going to keep it very close. I thought Texas was going to blow the doors off of Clemson. I was 1 for 4 with the Clemson-Texas pick. 0 for 3 in the other 3 in terms of not just results, but even like being in the ballpark of one and ended up happening. So we go into round 2, and again, accountability where accountability matters. I thought with the Oregon Ducks, I said a couple of times, even though I have been a staunch Ryan Day defender on this show, which is ludicrous to me. I have been a staunch Ryan Day defender on this show. I went into the Oregon game saying, if you are talking about 2 highly ranked teams that are playing well, I think the first question you have to ask, and it's fair to do so, is this who Ohio State is? The Ohio State that played Tennessee or the Ohio State that played Michigan? Which of those 2 teams is the real Ohio State? And I said, honestly, because those are both extremes, right? The loss to Michigan was the extreme worst we've seen the Buckeyes, and the beatdown of Tennessee was the extreme best we've seen the Buckeyes. I think the truth is somewhere in the middle. And I think the Oregon Ducks, if we average out all of their performances and say, where is this team? I think on average, the Ducks look like a better team than the Buckeyes start to finish. That's not an insult. That's just how good Oregon has been. That's more of a compliment to Oregon than it is a disparagement of Ohio State. And so I said, I think this game is going to come down to 2 things. I think it's going to come down to the coaching. I think it's going to come down to the quarterbacking. And if you gave me my pick going into this game, if you gave me my pick of which combination head coach quarterback would I rather rock with for 1 win, Dan Lanning and Dillon Gabriel or Ryan Day and Will Howard, I would take Lanning and Gabriel. And I think, I could be wrong, if you take the fandom out of the equation, I think even most Buckeye fans would have said that up until yesterday. I think most Buckeyes, if I say, even if you love Ryan Day, you just said Ryan Day and Will Howard, if it came down to coach and quarterback and nothing else, wouldn't stack up to Dan Lanning and Dillon Gabriel. And then Will Howard's like, yo, I should have been in New York City. I should have been a Heisman finalist. Now, we all know in the regular season, that's not true. But playoff Will Howard, change that man's number to 12 and put a blue hat and silver hat and blue jersey on him. Because all of a sudden, playoff Will Howard looks like Tom Dan Brady in his prime.
Wait. Why not put a red jersey and a 15 on him?
Because
some guy that most people haven't heard of before. Why would you throw that guy?
Patrick Mahomes' skill is improvisation. Tom Brady stands in the pocket, in the pocket, and picks you apart. And that's what Will Howard's doing right now. He's not having to improvise a damn thing. He's just surgical with the football for some reason.
You realize there are people out there who have never seen Tom Brady play.
Okay, people who haven't seen Tom Brady play are like 7 years old. Let's not get ridiculous. I'm not that old.
They're out there.
All right? They're like 7.
You're 1 month away, dude.
So all of that being said, this Buckeye team is unbelievable. By the way, as of right now, and I don't think this is going to change when we play the Sugar Bowl this afternoon. As of right now, the Ohio State Buckeyes justifiably have the shortest odds to win the national championship. They're plus 165 to win the Natty right now. And if you are someone who hits the road up to Asheville, North Carolina to drop some change on some sporting events, grab them now because I don't think that line's going anywhere. I'll tell you right now, the Ohio State team, and again, I am comfortable saying what we are seeing out of the Buckeyes right now is not a mirage. It's not an illusion. What we're seeing out of the Buckeyes right now is just who Ohio State is. And as good as that game was, and it was a spectacular game, Texas and Arizona State, I think right now they're that much better than Texas. I think Texas is getting bounced in the semis. I got to tell you, if you are someone who likes to put a little scratch down on some sports outcomes, Ohio State plus 165 to win the Natty is a good pick because I'll tell you right now, you're not afraid because of the narrative. Bet on narratives or don't. It's up to you. Because of the narrative, I'm not afraid of Penn State if I'm Ohio State. I'm not afraid without Carson Beck. I'm not afraid of Georgia. To me, Lonzo, there is one team left that scares me if I'm a Buckeye, and that's Notre Dame, and they still are not in the semifinals yet. They got to get by Georgia today.
Yeah, they got, and with all the tragedy that happened there, it's got to be hard to play a football game. But when they do, it's hard to bet against Georgia. It really is, even with a backup quarterback. At least to me, it is.
No, I don't disagree with you. In fact, we talked about this. I was hosting BetMGM Tonight last night with Sean Levine, and we got into this conversation. And I pointed out to Sean and Hayden S. Mario yesterday. By the way, my Hayden S. Mario are going to join us at 9 o'clock today. Schedule sets up today. We do have Lulu Kesson joining us at 8:40. We will talk, at 8 o'clock. We will talk a little bit about the Cheez-It Bowl. Because that got spicy there for just a second. We'll talk to Lulu Kesson about that. Rashad Beard moving to tomorrow. He's got a real job that he's got to do today. Rashad Beard of the Panther Nation podcast. We'll talk Week 18 Panther football with us tomorrow. We do have Hayden S. Mario at 9 o'clock to talk NFL and NBA storylines and Fight Club with the great one Lonzo coming up. First Fight Club of 2025 at 9:20. But I told Sean Levine and Mario yesterday, and you've heard this, you've heard me say this before if you've listened to the show for more than like 8 minutes. Rob Brown does not pick based on narratives of the past. Rob Brown does not pick based on narratives of the past. What a team did last year or what has historically been the narrative about a team. I try to disqualify those things from my reason for picking a team. The 2023 Notre Dame team has nothing to do with the 2024 team. There's one exception to that, which is, a head coach getting experience in big time games. If you got a quarterback who's been in a natty before, then maybe the nerves aren't quite as high as a quarterback making his natty debut or whatever. Like that's the exception to the rule. But I don't, as an overall team, look at a team and go, oh, well, they've been here before. The narrative about them is this, that, and the other, which that's kind of what we're looking at with this Georgia Notre Dame game that's coming up this afternoon. And we'll talk about that later in the show. I got a Georgia team that the narrative is they kick a bunch of ass in the playoffs. They won back-to-back natties. They were a couple of bad snaps away last year from going back to number 3, but they got beat by Alabama in the SEC championship game, and that kind of threw a wrench into the system. So there's a lot of discussion about this. And I think it's important to talk about because the other side of the narrative is Notre Dame. Notre Dame has, during the Brian Kelly era, during the Charlie Weiss era, if you want to go back in time, how many times has Notre Dame had a regular season that had us all say, this is it? They've turned the corner. Like Bob Seger said, turn the page. Well, that's James Hetfield, but you get the point.
He just did the Metallica version.
The point here is, how many times has Notre Dame in the regular season played good football and we go, that's it. This team's different. This team's got the eye of the tiger, the thrill of the fight. Like, this team's ready to roll. That's Survivor. They're ready to roll. And then they show up in the playoffs and they go up against Georgia or Alabama or a Big Ten team and they get the floor waxed with their backsides, right? The narrative is a Georgia team who keeps getting here and keeps getting it done versus a Notre Dame who tricksies us precious every single year into thinking, oh, this is the year that Notre Dame turns the corner. And then they get their asses handed to them by an SEC or a Big Ten team. Both teams in this Sugar Bowl tonight have a narrative about them. And by the way, Notre Dame's favored by a point. Excuse me, Georgia's favored by a point. But Notre Dame has been, I got them a couple of days ago, as a pick'em game. It's a pick'em game. So it's not just two teams that are trying to carry their momentum of 2024. Georgia winning the SEC title game. Notre Dame going, 11-1 with the worst loss of any team in the playoff. But here's the thing, and Sean Levine pointed this out last night. Notre Dame lost that Northern Illinois game because they had one bad quarter of football. Granted, it came at the worst possible time against an FCS squad. They had one bad quarter of football. It cost them the worst loss, or there would have been two undefeated teams in this college football playoff. Since then, Notre Dame has kicked ass every quarter since that one bad quarter against Northern Illinois. And then there's Georgia. As Alonzo pointed out, no Carson Beck. They're going with a highly touted recruit, but a recruit at quarterback who has 51 career passes, and almost all of them came in garbage time situations against lesser opponents. Do you trust that, or do you lean on the narrative? And the answer to me is, Alonzo, I'm taking Notre Dame in the pick'em. I think that, again, maybe I'm going to come in here and look like a JA tomorrow, but I feel like this is the year Notre Dame kind of turns the page on that narrative. And without Carson Beck starting for Georgia, it's hard for me to imagine a world in which a Georgia team, which we all know is not as good as they were last year or the year before, is going to go out there and get a team that has been dominant since the worst loss of any playoff team.
Yeah, Notre Dame is Notre Dame. They do the same thing every year, every time they make it to the playoff. When's the last time they won a playoff game? I don't remember. I mean, I guess it happened. If they believe the narrative that it's a backup quarterback for Georgia, then Notre Dame's in trouble.
I will say this, and again, how many times have you heard me say this? Great one. I do not pick based on intangibles. I don't even like talking about intangibles because there's no way to measure them. Intangibles are nothing but speculation. So we can absolutely say, hey, if Notre Dame is looking at all this setup and they're looking at, they're looking at Georgia and they're going, no Carson Beck, they're going with the backup quarterback. We're just going to pin the years back and go get him. And they take this cat lightly and he turns out to be the guy that Georgia fans think he's going to turn into being. Then, yeah, I mean, like at that point, maybe they come out and Georgia goes up 14-0 early and all of a sudden we got a weird ball game because Notre Dame's got to play from behind or whatever. Sure, but I can't judge that. I'm not in Notre Dame's locker room. I'm not on their bus. I'm not in their hotel. I can't tell you that they feel that way or that they don't feel that way. What I can tell you right now is that Alonzo's going to be obnoxious today. That's what I can tell you at 6:19 in the morning. All right, we're going to talk a lot of college football playoffs. We do have the 4 p.m. kickoff to the Sugar Bowl after the tragic events that took place New Year's Eve in my hometown of New Orleans, Louisiana. We'll address that and more when we come back. I am Rob Brown. The great Alonzo is back, baby. The Rob Brown Show's on your radio. It's the Fan Upstate, y'all.
I don't care what your daddy do. 'Cause you know, stupid girl, I'm in love with you. And so I say now, hey.
You burned it all the way to there and then went over the chorus?
Yes, I did that on purpose. Why did I stutter, Matt Kraft? If I did, it's because I am in extreme pain. Thank you for noticing that. Admittedly, there was a major hesitation in my point that I was making because dwarves with sledgehammers. They're invisible, but they are really accurate with their hammers. Yeah, it already happened, dude. Battle tested. Enjoy my pouring of the water. Ceremonial.
Why is that the Ohio State song?
You know, I looked it up at one point, and I just don't remember. So, I mean,
Let's ask ChatGPT. Why does Ohio State love Sloopy? Hang on. Hang on, Sloopy is beloved by Ohio State fans and it's by Ohio State University fans because it has become an iconic part of the university. Yeah, I'm asking why. The song Hang On Sloopy by the McCoys became a hit in 1965 and quickly gained popularity across the U.S. Shortly after its release, the Ohio State marching band began performing it during football games. In 1985, Hang On Sloopy was officially designated as the state rock song of Ohio, cementing its association with the state and its flagship university.
so the band, it's basically the band played it
That's what it looks
a
like.
while, and so they,
The song's reference to Sloopy resonates as a local down-to-earth character, which many associate with the hardworking and spirited people of Ohio.
that was a
Basically, they played it once in the 1950s, and then your school was like, we're just doing this forever.
Okay.
Checks out.
Yeah, every school does that.
Join us on our live stream, facebook.com/The Fan Upstate, The Fan Upstate on YouTube, or The Rob Brown Show on Facebook, YouTube, or because we're just a couple of filthy millennials, Twitch. Go to The Rob Brown Show across all those platforms and join us on the live stream. We've got Mike and Danny and Madcraft that are all in here hanging out with us so far. The rest of you, welcomed and encouraged to join us on the live stream as well. During the break, I asked the great one, Lonzo, of course, the chief advocate of the Ohio State University around these parts, why it was as he played Hang On Sloopy as the bumper music on the way out. Why is that song the song that Ohio State, every university has like that song that they play. Florida plays Tom Petty and yada, yada, yada. And there's always some connection to it. I asked why. Lonzo said, I looked it up once and I don't remember the answer. So I went and looked it up. And the answer is that song became a hit in 1965. And apparently the band, the McCoys, are from Ohio. In 1985, Hang On Sloopy was officially designated as the state rock song of Ohio, cementing its association with the state and its flagship university. So basically, around 1985, Ohio said, Hang On Sloopy is the song that best represents us as a state because reasons. And the band was like, okay, that's it. We're doing that forever. That's the reason.
I know you're not going to read the reasons, but as probably the only person from Ohio you know, Doesn't that, describe me? So, and if everyone is like me there, then it's a good description of why they chose the song.
Here's the thing. I'm going to go right now. If I went out there, and I mean, you're not wrong, but if I went out there and asked like 89 people to give me a lyric to Hang On Sloopy outside of Hang On Sloopy, Sloopy, Hang On, I'm going to bet none of them could. The song, obviously, about a kid from a rough and tumble neighborhood. Let's say they literally opens with Sloopy lives in a bad part of town. A very bad part of town.
I can relate to that. So yeah,
and then goes on to say, and I quote, Sloopy, let your hair down, girl. Let it hang down on me. So, Lady Lonzo. It's like Lady Deadpool, but Lady Lonzo is Sloopy. I get it. So it's actually, see, I got it wrong. I said a down on his luck guy. It's not. It's a down on his luck girl because I don't know the lyrics either, other than hang on, Sloopy, Sloopy, hang on, O-H-I-O, which are not in the official lyrics.
There's probably a good portion of people from Ohio don't have a clue why that's why that's the song. But just like if you go with why are they playing Enter Sandman, I guess because it's cool. Why are they playing Mr. Brightside? Because they're into voyeurism. There's a lot of things.
Coming out of my key and I'll be doing just fine. Gotta be. List of rock bands from Ohio. Then we get to the Georgia Notre Dame game. 9 Inch Nails from Ohio. Devo is from Ohio. I'll be dadgummed.
Whip it good.
21 Pilots, Hawthorne Heights, the Breeders, the Black Keys, James Gang is credited as being from Ohio. The OJs, shockingly, the Ohio players are from Ohio.
Just wait until you got to that.
The Isley Brothers are from Ohio. Walk the Moon is from Ohio. Reliant K, you should find a state song for Reliant K. That's who your state song should be by.
You like Reliant K.
I love Reliant K.
Okay.
Wild Cherry is from Ohio.
Play that funky music, white boy.
The ultimate wedding reception song, I think. All right. Mushroom Head, the Raspberries, the Pretenders. How are you not rolling with some Pretenders as a state
Chrissy
song?
Hines, I went back to Ohio.
That's good stuff, man.
She was very upset about how Ohio changed. Probably don't want to use her.
That's fair. The Outsiders, no, not Kevin Nash and Scott Hall. The other ones, the band, the music. Let's see. Is that? There's a lot more, but I don't know most of them.
There's a lot more.
There's a band from Ohio called Frickin' A. That's incredible.
I believe Information Society's from there too.
I have not come across them, but it's a very long list.
Yes,
very long list. So my point is, you could do better than Hang On Sloopy. You could do better, is all I'm saying.
It still comes down to the best band playing that song a bunch, and then they ended up, because they were the only ones playing that song, they went with the song.
That's fair. You also made that decision in the 1980s. That song was like 20 years old at that point. Like you had a lot of options. Yeah. Okay. Hilarious.
Should they play that funky music, white boy, as your theme?
Ohio.
I don't know. No. I don't think that would go over well.
I think Whip It would be hilarious.
It would. But I wonder which is more known, Whip It or Sloopy. I don't know.
I mean, in the state of Ohio, Sloopy. And I guess that at the end of the day is all that matters, right? But I think outside the state of Ohio, Whip It, Devo's got to be it. They had the hats. It's the hats, man. The hats are iconic.
I still want one of those hats. Those hats are cool.
The lead singer of a band that travels around, an 80s cover band called the Molly Ringwalds. Have you heard of the Molly Ringwalds?
No, but I do know, I'm aware of who she is.
Molly Ringwald, of course, is the namesake of the band from the Brat Pack back in the day. The Molly Ringwalds are a phenomenal traveling 80s and 90s cover band. They're enormous.
I wonder how that works. Can you, naming yourself after a person, do they have to give permission for you to use their name?
It's a good question. I actually don't know the answer to that, to be honest with you. But they're phenomenal. And their lead singer guitarist, guy by the name of Jack, grew up across the street from my lead singer and bassist. And he has dressed like Devo, for his whole life, dressing like Dabo, khakis in a sweater. No, he's dressed like the guy from the lead singer of Devo. His whole shtick as his phenomenal traveling cover band.
I thought you were gonna say overalls and the smell of manure, but
wow,
that's just. I mean,
Lonzo came back with the chamber loaded. All right, he's back, baby. So speaking of, and we got to get to this in a little bit. It has not been officially confirmed by Clemson yet, but The Post and Courier, including our friend John Blau, has reported that Wes Goodwin is out as the defensive coordinator of the Clemson Tigers. He is now the second of the hirings by Dabo Swinney as an in-house coordinator elevation to not work out. Is the initial offensive coordinator after the departure of Tony Elliott, and now the defensive coordinator after the transfer of moving of Brent Venables. That's what I'm calling coaching moves now, transfers. The transfer of Brent Venables out to Oklahoma. Wes Goodwin has apparently, according to the Post and Courier, been relieved of his duties. I expect that Clemson, if it is true, will likely confirm that at some point today. Look, here's the conversation. I think the conversation here is going to be, this is a good milestone for the culture shift that I think is inevitably going to take place at Clemson, or at least probably should, right?
It really depends on who they get to replace them.
Well, that's it. I mean, do they elevate from inside again? Since the departure of Elliott and Venables, obviously Dabo is now 0 for 2 at hiring coordinators from inside. There are some guys that have been long-term tenured that could take over that role. Some guys that have been with them since the 2011, 12, 13 seasons that are rumored to be candidates for that position. Or does Dabo decide to break from the norm of internal promotions and decide to hire from outside? Right now, the rumor going around is that he is eyeballing as his number one candidate Tennessee's defensive coordinator, which I got to tell you is a good one. Outside of the butt whooping that they received at the hands of Lonzo's Ohio State University Buckeyes, Tennessee had, and this is why this is the reason I picked Tennessee to upset Ohio State. Again, incorrectly, because accountability is important on this show, if no others. I said going into that game, there are two reasons I was picking Tennessee for the upset. Number one is Nico Iamaleava, which I can nail now, by the way. Thank you very much. I wait till the season's over, but I got it now. Nico Iamaleava is the most explosive quarterback that Ohio State will have played. And people said, wait a minute, what about Dylan Gabriel? I like Dylan Gabriel a lot, but Nico Iamaleava is a more athletic outside the pocket quarterback. Ohio State has now shut both of those guys down back-to-back weeks.
I got to say it. I've only seen both those guys play once. They didn't impress me either time.
No, you've seen Dylan Gabriel play twice.
All right. Yeah, you're right.
And he got you in game one. Let's relax a little bit.
No, he didn't. Will Howard screwed up. If he goes down and they take a timeout, they kick a field goal, they win that game. Come on.
Long field goal.
So? Field goal kickers are not very good right now, though.
Texas, what are you doing? I had the under 52 in that game. If he knocks that field goal through, I win good money. Nope. Can't have nice things.
A lot of doinks, lately.
A lot of doinks.
Yeah.
What a doink, you big doink. Anyway, I'm so mad I forgot where I was now. Damn kickers. I've been defending kickers for years, and this is what I get for it. Anyway, the front seven of Tennessee. The front seven of Tennessee was one of the best front sevens in the country. A little weak at the defensive backfield, but they could kind of afford to be because quarterbacks had less time in the pocket against Tennessee than all but like two other college football defenses this year. That was built by a man that is now being considered by Dabo to come in and take over the OC role if he decides not to promote from within. And my question mark is going to be this. Does Dabo stick with the Dabo philosophy and promote from within? Or does he go get the best available candidate with experience and kind of break the mold? Well, he's gone into the transfer portal twice in the last couple of weeks. Are we going to see Dabo break from his philosophy or not?
He also got an offensive coordinator from outside the family.
He did.
So it's not unusual for him to do that.
I would say it's unusual. I would say it would not be the first time, and that's why it's going to be a discussion. All right, we'll talk more about that later on in the show. We'll get to this Georgia-Notre Dame game and more. That's all coming up on the Rob Brown Show in the Fan Upstate.
Which broadcast of the game did you watch?
I watched every game on Skycam.
Oh, so you didn't watch McAfee. Okay.
I watched about that's not true.
So I was pointing at that those two guys in Oregon because
McAfee just absolutely shredding them.
McAfee said, what's Matt Hardy doing here? And that's the first that's the first thought I have when they showed the dude on the left looked just like Matt Hardy. I'm like, is that Matt Hardy? And then I'm thinking that, and then he said, why is Matt Hardy here?
By the way,
my wife said she preferred to listen to the McAfee cast over Herb Street and those guys. I want to hear AJ Hawk.
I listened to about 20 minutes of the McAfee pod. And the only reason I flipped away was because I just prefer the all 22 cam, the sky cam. But I watched about 20 minutes of it. In fact, I had to laugh because I think I watched the first quarter. And after you guys scored with Jeremiah in 30 damn seconds to open the game, and then you turn around and went right back to him. McAfee at one point was talking. He's like, yo, if they don't figure out a way to stop Jeremiah, this is going to be a long day for the Ducks. And on the very next play, you guys threw it. Howard threw it to him in triple coverage. And he just went up and mossed them. Just Jordan posterized all three Duck defensive backs. And McAfee just laughs into the microphone. He's like, I don't know what you do. I don't know how you stop that. And I did say out loud because I was watching it with the.
And he, like you, picked Oregon to beat Ohio State. So yeah.
I was watching the game with the wife on the couch, and I started laughing, and she's like, "Why are you laughing?" And I'm like, "Because I got to tell you, I prefer McAfee because it's just a dude talking football instead of play-by-play guys." And for the record, I think play-by-play guys had a real good run of it this weekend. I think there was some good play-by-play for what I listened to. But I said
a lot of people unhappy with Tessitore. So
yeah, that's fine. I said this is to me. This is the way I want football commentary. I want dudes just talking about the game. I don't need you to tell me 17-yard catch by Jeremiah Smith on the. Talk about it. Talk about the game. Talk about what's happening out there. And McAfee was good, but as a football dude, I prefer the all 22 cam where I get to see route trees develop. I like seeing all 22 dudes on the field. Which you don't get in any other broadcast. I spent every game watching all 22 cam.
I watched a little bit of it accidentally and realized I don't like this. And then I switched away from it just because it's I enjoy commentary.
Yep.
And if I'm going to feel like I'm at the game, I prefer to be at the game. And I like to hear what other people's opinions are of what they're watching.
See, but that's what I'm saying. That's McAfee's pod.
See if it meshes with mine or goes against mine.
That's fair.
I also saw the president of Ohio was down there on the sidelines with that wonderful jacket and that great patch, and you got to watch that.
It was a good jacket. I think I'm about to go down a rabbit hill of vintage college football clothing, because I'm going to tell you right now, their game sucked, but those throwback Oregon jerseys were legit. I loved them.
I like the helmets.
I did too.
Yeah.
I think the vintage jersey, but with the modern helmet, was a good vibe.
Didn't help them win. But yeah,
not even a little. The Rob Brown Show rolls on. It is the Fan Upstate. Rob, the great one, Lonzo, making his return. Spectacular to have you all with us this lovely Thursday as we get the first show of the year 2025 underway. I want to wish you all a very happy, prosperous, safe, and healthy new year. You have an opportunity as the calendar turns to 2025. I don't know about you. I'm a milestone guy. All right. I like to, if I'm going to make a change, if I'm going to do something, I like to have a date that I work up to that date and I go, on this date, I'm doing this thing. And it's just the ability to tick a box for whatever reason is very satisfying to me. So I went through, I said, look, I'm going to enjoy the holidays. I'm going to eat, drink, and be merry. I'm going to have my good times. And then when Jan 1 rolls around, we're full tilt. We're taking it up a notch. We're hitting another gear in terms of my personal goals and ambitions, my show goal and ambition. It is it's an opportunity for me. It's a starting point. It's a green flag because I not just have to see results, but I want to be able to measure results. I'm a tangible, empirical guy. I want to be able to see results, but more importantly, measure them so that I can look and say, here's the numbers, here's the data that support that the change that you say is happening. I like to do it with numbers of listeners in the radio station, number of engagements, and yada, yada, yada that we make. Those are the things I like to do and see as we move forward. And the same is true with my personal life. If I'm trying to lose weight, I want to be able to pop on the scale in the AM once I get up out of bed and look at the number and see that it's lower than it was yesterday. And if Lonzo and I have a project, I want to be able to say, all right, we needed this much done and we got this. This is that opportunity. This is that milestone. So I hope you all take advantage of that and look ahead to what can be a good year. Because if 2024 taught me anything, Lonzo, it's that in 2 weeks, we're going to be sitting here on New Year's Day going into 2026. The years are now 2 weeks long. That's just how they work. So take advantage of this opportunity, of this milestone, of this chance to really evaluate where you are and be able to look back in a month, in 6 months, in a year, and point back to Jan 2, 2025 and say, that's where I was, and here's where I am, and I took advantage of this opportunity, and I hope all of you do that. Now, with that being said, I also want to take just a moment as I completely throw the show back into first gear to tell my folks down there in what I consider the greatest city in the world, New Orleans, Louisiana, that I love you, that I am thinking about you. The horrific and cowardly attack that took place on New Year's Eve by an absolute monster of a person. It's awful, man. I woke up on New Year's Day. The wife and I had a lovely New Year's Eve. We both decided together that, we weren't going to go out and go crazy on New Year's Eve. We had talked about getting dressed up and going out. By the time it rolled around, we were like, what do you say to pajama pants? We watched Ryan Seacrest on TV. We have a little champagne at midnight. We call it a day. And then we get up and have a good day on the first. And that's what we did. I woke up on Jan 1 thinking to myself, like, what a day we're about to have. Going to be a spectacular start to the year. And once I got up, took a shower, brushed my teeth, I pop on social media, and I find out about the attack that happened on Bourbon Street, a place that I have spent many a night, some of them that I remember in my youth. Horrific, tragic, terrifying, cowardly. There's a list, a litany of adjectives that I could use to describe that event, but there are a list of adjectives that I could use to describe the city of New Orleans, a city that if you go back a lot of years, back to when Katrina rolled through there, a city that it would make sense if it didn't exist anymore. It would make sense that the people in that city would have given up and would have said, nope, it's had a good run, but it's not worth it, and would have all moved to other parts of the country and taken all that, the culture that city is, and abandon it because it's been not great down there. But as much as there have been politicians that have tried to ruin it, as much as there have been some awful people from all different scenarios that have tried to make it a bad place to be, that city to me is the most culturally significant city in the United States of America. It is the most unique city in the United States of America. It is a place that nothing is real and yet everything is at the same time. It is my favorite place on earth. I'm going to tell you right now, warn you in advance that I'm going to be off for a couple of days in early March because the lady friend came to me a couple of weeks ago and said, hey, surprise, we're going to go spend your 40th birthday in New Orleans. She's never been there before. And I got to tell you, even with this, and she's nervous. She's like, I don't know about this anymore. I'm like, no, we're going. We're going. It's the best city in the world. The food, the music, the culture, and on top of all of that, the people, man. The people are incredible, and they will show the world again just how incredible they are. Because, and it's unfortunate how many times in my career I've had to make this point, but the concept of people when they do things like what this absolute monster did May he rot in whatever the worst possible outcome of whatever's on the other side of this life is. When someone acts that way, they are trying to change you. They are trying to make you act differently. They are trying to get you to behave differently. And if there is one thing I can tell you about the people of New Orleans, Louisiana, it's that ain't going to happen. That ain't going to happen. I go back to when Katrina went through that city. And that city was devastated. You all saw the images. You all saw the videos. You all saw the pictures. And one of my I don't know why, one of my core memories after Katrina rolled through there, what was a couple of weeks, whatever it was later, when football started up. And, the Saints couldn't play in the Superdome. They had to play down in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. They had to play more road games. Like, it was just a rough time of it. There was a article that came out in the New Orleans Times-Picayune, the big newspaper down there in the Crescent City. And it was a feature on Saints fans trying to find their way in the post-Katrina New Orleans and trying to find some level of normalcy. And there was a picture on the front page of this paper that has stuck with me ever since, because I think it was maybe the most New Orleans thing I've ever seen. There was a picture of a family, and I don't remember exactly which neighborhood it was in and around New Orleans, but there was a picture of a family, great one, where they were sitting in, for lack of a better term, the guts of what was their home. It was just the frame, the foundation and the frame of the house. They had to rip everything down. The sheetrock was destroyed. All the wiring was destroyed. They had to rip everything out. They were literally sitting in what used to be their living room with nothing but the foundation and the wood of the house around them. And you know what they did? They rigged up a satellite and a generator to a TV. They rigged up a boil pot and a propane tank, and they threw a whole crawfish boil right there in what was the devastated remains. Nothing but the foundation and the wood frame. They threw a whole crawfish boil and watched the New Orleans Saints on a television hooked up to a generator and an old school rabbit ear antenna, because they said, we are not changing who we are on Saint Sundays. We're not changing it. We may not have a roof to do it under, but we're not changing who we are. And that is the ultimate tribute to what that city is. Bad things happen, and the people of New Orleans look at it and they go, how are we going to continue this party? How are we not going to let something this bad change the identity of who we are as people from the most unique cultural city in America? That was the ultimate illustration of that. A family in a house that doesn't exist anymore decided, we're throwing a crawfish boil. We got nothing left. We got FEMA trailers. We got blue tarps. We got no money. We got no house. We got no walls. We got no roof to do it under. But we're going to hook up the one working TV we can find in this city to a generator. We're going to stick some rabbit ears on it, and we're going to watch the Saints play, because that's what you do on Sundays in New Orleans, Louisiana. And they're going to bounce back from this too. Horrific scene down in New Orleans. Push the Sugar Bowl back to 4:00 today. And for the record, I think that's the right decision, right? I think that's the right call. It's a football game.
But also doing it during the daytime, just in case. I mean, it's visibility and all that kind of stuff.
I completely agree.
It makes more sense. Yeah.
They initially reported that it was going to be pushed back with no knowledge of exactly what date it was going to be pushed back to. Then they came back and said 24 hours. Then they came back and said not quite 24 hours. We're going to push it back to 4 p.m., which allows them to do a full day sweep of the Superdome. It allows them to up the security. It also allows them to have daylight on the people coming into that arena to try to prevent another tragedy from happening. I think it's a good call. I have to commend the Sugar Bowl committee. I have to commend the folks down there that are in charge of this decision and the way that they are handling it so far. I think they're handling it exceptionally well. My heart breaks for that city, not just for the 15 people and counting who lost their lives, not just for the countless number of people who were injured by this absolute cowardly animal of a human being who committed this attack, But my heart breaks for the people in New Orleans who are now scared. And why wouldn't you be? Unfortunately, some of the video of the aftermath came across my my phone screen last night, and it was a horror movie down there. People are scared, and they have a right to feel that way. And my heart breaks for those people who were just trying to go out and have a celebration on the most celebration-worthy night of any given year, and that's what they experienced. But I will tell all of you, as someone that is from that city, as someone that has a fleur-de-lis tattooed on his back that I am exceptionally proud of, as someone who, to this day, my home is Greenville, South Carolina. But if you ask me where I am from, if you ask me where I live, if you ask me where home is, it's Greenville, South Carolina. But if you ask me where I'm from, it is, was, and always will be New Orleans, Louisiana. I will tell you, as somebody from there, as somebody who the majority of my family lives there, that place is going to bounce back. That place is going to show you what New Orleans strong means. And I promise you tonight, as much as it is going to start with a moment of silence, as much as there is going to be an air of darkness around the Sugar Bowl tonight, when it is go time, that city's going to put on a party for you. That city's going to put on a show around Georgia Notre Dame tonight. That city is going to show you. And by the way, Super Bowl's there in February. And I'm going to go ahead and tell you right now, it is going to be one of the most entertaining Super Bowls. I don't know whether the game's going to be good or not. We'll find out when we find out who's going there. But I will tell you right now, the lead up to that game, the party around that game, the environment and the energy around that game is going to be absolutely through the roof, because that city is not going to do anything but have a good time. They are damn sure not going to let one cowardly son of a you-know-what take the party away from them. That is what that city does and what that city is all about. All right. Shout out and love to the 504 from one of your native sons, man. I love New Orleans. I miss New Orleans. I'll be down there in early March to celebrate the 40th birthday. I'm super excited about that. And my love goes down to all my people, all my Cajun folk down there in New Orleans, man. Tragedy. It's awful. It's disgusting. It's gross. It's horrifying. And yet, laissez les bon temps rouler. The people are not going to stop the party, because that's what that city is. The best party culture in America, baby. All right. My favorite thing about today is that the great one's back. And my favorite thing today about the great one being back is that I don't have to do the sports flashes anymore.
Yeah, I didn't miss this at all. 3 to 4 spots in the college football playoff semifinals have been claimed, and the winner of today's Sugar Bowl will decide the last. Texas escaped Arizona State in double overtime with 39-31 win on the back of 322 yards and 3 touchdown passes from Quinn Ewers, outdueling Cam Scattaboo's 143-yard, 2 touchdown rushing day, also puking on the sidelines. The Ohio State University destroyed the number 1 Oregon with a 41-21 win behind Will Howard's 319 yards, 3 touchdown day, including 187 and 2 touchdowns to Jeremiah Smith. Penn State is in after a 31-14 win over Boise State behind Katron Allen's 134 rushing yards. The Nittany Lions await the winner of today's Georgia versus Notre Dame matchup. Tune in this Saturday at 3:30 as Furman Paladins take on the UNC Greensboro Spartans. Furman versus UNC Greensboro right here on the Fan, Upstate. Rob Brown Show, what do you want to talk about? Okay, it's the phone number. So the phone number that you called, that is now the text line. So if you text to 844-326-3663, so if you text to this phone number, the one you just called, it will go through to our text line, or it is a text line. No problem. All right, bye. Oh.
Without the constant pain that some of you have normalized. So, if you'd like to learn more
free consultation today. Deal with your joint pain now so you can enjoy the new year. Call 864-448-3772 in Greenville and Nashville. 864-448-3772. 864-448-3772. You know, Madcraft, I'm going to make the argument that it is a happy note because as horrific as that event was, to me, the happy note is that I can promise you that city is going to continue to party. That is the most good times all the times city that you'll ever go to, and there's something about it.
So you need to, when you find out your exact date in March, let me know because I usually take my spring vacation around that time, and I will try to take it.
I can tell you right now, it's likely St. Patrick's Day weekend.
Okay.
And I believe that it'll be the 16th, 17th, 20th, and 21st. Which I don't like taking 4 days that early in the year, but if I do it right, I'll only turn 40 once. And if the wife says we're going to New Orleans for your 40th, I'll take the days.
Did you do your Xbox year in review?
I did not. I didn't know that was a thing.
Yeah, you can. Yeah, it is. It's kind of sad. I'm in the top 1% in the world in a couple things. So including they tell you what game you played the most and how many hours you spent in it. And apparently I was in the Starfield for the entire year, and I'm in the 1% of the world that plays that game. So I mean, you know, top 10% in game time and some other stuff. And as was said Saturday, how do you have time to play? I can't walk. I can barely walk, so I can't really do a whole lot. So that's what I've been doing.
Have you ever watched, like, I know you don't watch other people play games, and I totally get that. But have you ever like come across other people playing games and seen somebody who's so stupidly good at a game, or that there's a community so stupidly good at a game that it discourages you from playing it anymore? Could you just know you're never going to be able to compete with them?
Because I don't play those kind of games that you're talking about? No. Because the majority of the games that I play are open world games with a bunch of mods that no one can play it the same way that you play it.
Yeah. So the reason I ask is because me and the boys have been on Rocket League. Just, it's an easy game to play while you just kind of joke around and make fun of each other for an hour or two before you call it a night. But I've come across these people who are so stupidly impossibly good at that game that I'm like, why am I wasting my time? And it's really just because it's a fun way to kill time with the fellas.
I don't take it that seriously. I mean, I don't like losing. And if I struggle at something, it really makes me mad. But I just don't like those kind of games because I play games to escape people, not to go play with people.
See,
although if I do play with people, I do have fun. It's just only, if you're playing with your group of guys, like what you're talking about. If I'm playing with Cameron and Raven, I have a blast. Mostly because Raven and I will drive Cameron nuts. Just singing the entire time, blowing up stuff you're not supposed to blow up, just things like that. Not taking it seriously. I don't want to play with people who take it way too seriously. Because that's like being at work or a normal job. Not this job, but, a normal job. You probably would, Madcraft. You probably would. Probably wouldn't even get a punch in there. It'd be fun, though, for you. Huh. That's interesting. I like all the Lego games. And And Lego Fortnite, I guess, makes sense because Legos are square. And, you know, I just don't like playing games where I can't win. I mean, ultimately, just keep playing the same thing over and over again.
Our numero dos of the Rob Brown Show rolls on. This is the fan upstate. Howdy, y'all. Rob Brown, the great one, Lonzo, hath returned to us. Going to have a lot of college football talk on the show today. Not exclusively, though, because it is the final week of the regular season of the National Football League. I went last night. I was hosting BetMGM tonight on the BetQL network last night. Some of you may have heard as it airs right here on this lovely radio station and fine Odyssey stations around these great United States. And we talked about it. I went and pulled up all the playoff scenarios. There are effectively two divisions and seeding being played for in the NFC, one division and some seeds ultimately being played. So, excuse me, two divisions and some seeds being played for in the AFC. There's really only a handful of teams for whom the Week 18 has great importance. Over in the AFC, you've got the Pittsburgh Steelers, the Cincinnati Bengals, the Miami Dolphins, and I think that's really it as far as who's going to get in. Everybody else knows that they are in, so it's seeding. Over in the NFC, you have effectively the NFC South that has to be determined, and what's the other division you got? Oh, the NFC North that's got to be decided, obviously, with the Vikings and the Lions playing not just for the division crown, but also playing for the number one seed and the first round bye. So we're going to get into all of that coming up later on in the show, and obviously tomorrow as well as we head into the football weekend. I really should say the NFL weekend because the college football weekends are concluded for this season. We have effectively a couple of smaller bowl games left to play, and we have got the semifinals in the Natty left ahead of us outside of the Sugar Bowl coming up at 4 p.m. this afternoon. So we'll get some football coming up here later on in the radio broadcast, NFL and college, as we head down the line. But, my dear friends, it is 7:02 in the morning. You are 57 minutes on the dot right now away from having to clock in and lock in at the office. For many of you, your first day back at work in 2025. And don't you want to go in there and show that you are heading into 2025 the most informed, enlightened, and educated sports fan in your office? Of course you do. And if you do, that's why you are here at 7 a.m. every weekday when the Rob Brown Show does this.
Are you ready for the playbook of the peculiar, the almanac of the absurd, and the encyclopedia of the extraordinary? Well, you better be, because we're diving headfirst into the 3 top stories that will have your coworkers saying,
"Shut the hell up,"
even before they take their first bathroom break.
No.
Here we go. Welcome to the Water Cooler Cheat Sheet on the Fan Upstate.
It's the Water Cooler Cheat Sheet, the top 3 sports stories that you need to know before you get to the office. This lovely January 2nd of, yes, it is true, my dear friends, 2025. We are a quarter of the way done with the 2000s. Not really. The 2000, then we go into 21, but you know how years work.
2020s.
Yeah.
Well, no, 25. No, it is a quarter.
Yeah, quarter of the way done with the.
Yeah, chances are none of us will see, the next.
Hey, I'm not giving up, baby. Science is pushing onwards, ever upwards. All right. Maybe, man. Although last night, I'll tell you what I had to do last night. While I was on the air, I came to the realization, though, that I had a hair growing out of not my earlobe, but like this the little middle part right there. I had a hair growing out of it.
Yeah,
like not a short one either, not like a little stubble thing, like a whole ass. I was able to get it out by grabbing it and pulling on it.
No, you don't want to do that.
Why?
Because you might pull out your ear.
Lose a groin while you're at it. All right, let's get to it. Let's start item number 1. There it is. We'll get back in the groove. Lonzo and I haven't worked together in 3 months. What do you
So
want?
let's get to it. I mean, you know,
I gotta say item number one.
well, you're just completely off. So I mean, it's not me. I mean, I'm on it. I
you
got here.
have been completely off. I've been here.
No. I mean, for someone coming off vacation, man, I'm killing it since I've been back.
We talked a little bit about it in the last segment. No need to necessarily go on and on about it. But after the terror attack, I don't care if they label it as officially that or not. It was, and it shall forever be labeled a terrorist attack that took place on New Year's Eve on Bourbon Street. The Sugar Bowl delayed, was expected to go down at 8:45 last evening. Instead, the game between Notre Dame and Georgia will take place today at 4 p.m. The Superdome was already locked out to do a full security sweep, and that's relatively standard operating procedure yesterday. And obviously, this attack on the people on Bourbon Street heightened that. That game has been moved to 4 p.m. today, with the winner punching their ticket to the January 9th Orange Bowl against Penn State in a college football championship semifinal. CEO Jeff Hundley, Sugar Bowl CEO Jeff Hundley, said in a media briefing yesterday that, quote, public safety is paramount. All parties all agree that it is in the best interest of everybody and public safety that we postpone the game. We are grateful to the leadership of the Sugar Bowl, New Orleans, the state of Louisiana, and federal authorities as we work together to ensure we can provide a safe environment for everyone. Landry added that he will attend, Governor Landry of Louisiana added that he will attend the Sugar Bowl and is confident the area around the stadium will be safe. There will obviously be extra law enforcement authorities on hand at the Caesars Superdome this evening to make sure that there are no repeat attacks or other incidents that would endanger the public. We will talk a little bit about the impact of the decision to postpone the game on the game itself a little bit later in the show, but we do have our final round 2 game this afternoon, 4 p.m., Georgia versus Notre Dame down in New Orleans, Louisiana. Let's go to item number 2. Item number 2, a continuation of item number 1. It is now official. 3 of the 4 third round spots, semifinal spots, have been claimed. We started it with a 31-14 Penn State victory over Boise State, a game that was, I don't know, Zoe. I think it was a better game than the final score indicates. Penn State got that touchdown in the fourth quarter that kind of separated these two teams. It was a relatively good game, but Penn State did exactly what I told you they were going to do. They were going to go all in on removing Ashton Jeanty from this game and say, if you're going to win it, Maddox Madsen, the quarterback for Boise State, is going to have to win it. 23 of 35, 304, 1 touchdown, but he was picked off 3 times. And that's the game. Jeanty did have 104 yards rushing, but it took him 30 carries to get to that mark, averaged just 3.5 yards per carry. And a big reason was he had one good 26-yard run. And outside of that, Ashton Jeanty, the Heisman Trophy runner-up, was largely negated. On the flip side, Katron Allen, running back for Penn State, 134 ground yards, 2 touchdowns through the air, caught by Tyler Warren, 6 grabs for 63. Drew Aller did exactly what I said he needed to do. Be good enough. Throw for around 50, 52%.
Not impressed by Jeanty at all. And Scatterboot, definitely. I know you're going to get to that. Definitely impressed by him. Jeanty, I'm not. The fact that Penn State kept waiting for them, because they don't usually win big games, to do something to lose it, and they did not. They were steady the entire time and went in and did what they had to do. But a lot of these West Coast guys, I want to see what they can do when they play better defenses and at an earlier time.
I have, and we can bring this up. We will talk about this later on in the show. I'm going to tell you right now, Spencer Danielson failed Ashton Jeanty in this game. I genuinely put him. I genuinely put him to blame on this. The offensive play calling in this game was hot garbage. Here's my question: if Penn State has told you and shown you that they are selling out on stopping Ashton Jeanty in the run game, and they were. If you go back and watch that game, every time Jeanty got the football, there was a mid-level defender, a linebacker, a walked-up safety or defensive back. Every time Jeanty touched the football, Penn State had a gunner coming right at his head. Every single snap that Jeanty was in the backfield, if he touched the football, there was an extra dude from Penn State that just went turbo to get to him and slow him up.
Doesn't it make you wonder if other defenses tried that throughout the year and they just were incapable of it because they weren't on the same skill level?
I don't know is the answer, because he put up 190 yards and 3 touchdowns against the Oregon Ducks. Now, granted, it was in week 2, and Oregon in week 2 was a different looking team than they were in week 10. I'm not going to disagree with that, but he smoked the Oregon Ducks and everybody else. Listen, I didn't think for a second, just so we're clear, and I said this on Tuesday's show, I said very clearly, I don't think Ashton Jeanty's getting $190 and 3 touchdowns like he does in a lot of other games. This is the best defense that he has played, and I may include the Oregon Ducks in that discussion. I don't think he's going for $190 and 3 tutties in this game like we're used to. I do think he can get to probably $125, $130, and a touchdown or 2. But here's the problem. When Penn State shows you that they're bringing a dude at the head of number 2 every time he touches the football, you got to get him the ball in other ways. You got to get him in other spots. You got to get him on screens. You got to get him on play action. You have got to do something else. And it's like, for whatever reason, Boise State was just like, look, we're either going to throw the ball with Madsen, a traditional passing offense, or we're going to run Jeanty right into the teeth of this defense. Madcraft popped in, and he said, Rob, I was screaming at my TV to throw a halfback screen to Jeanty just once. Same. I'm like, get him on the wings. What are we doing here? Like, it was an absolute failure of the Boise State coaching staff.
Because this is the first time I actually watched him play. Can he catch?
Yes.
Okay.
And they didn't throw him the ball. He had 3 catches for 22 yards. And the best part was all of those catches were just straight design catches. Like, you have to work your offense. You have to scheme this guy open. If you can scheme him into some one-on-one spots, if you can scheme him open, then you take advantage of an incredible skill set that he has. But it's like everything was, hey, guys, we're giving the ball to 2. And Penn State said, cool, we're sending an extra dude at 2. You got to beat us somewhere else. And when they tried to go through the air, there were some spots where Madsen was dropping darts on Penn State, and then they just went, yeah, we're not going to do it. I don't understand it. I got to tell you, Boise State's head coach Spencer Danielson was not ready for the big time. Just was not ready. I mean, look, he was up against a better team. There's no doubt about it. But they didn't do themselves any favors. Also on into the second round are the Texas Longhorns, a 39-31 double overtime win over a very scrappy Arizona State Sun Devil team. Quinn Ewers, 20 of 30 for 322, 3 touchdowns, and a pick. Sam Levitt from Arizona State, 24 of 46 for 222. Here's the fun part. Texas ran for 53 yards. Do you remember how many they ran for against Clemson? 292. They ran for 53 against Arizona State.
That sort of thing will get your defensive coordinator fired.
Yeah, real quick. We might be talking about that coming up later in the show. Arizona State ran the ball for 214 yards in this game. The problem was they got to a point where they were playing from behind right out of the gate. It was 14-3 at the end of the first quarter. And at that point, Arizona State had to change the game plan, had to stop. Even though Cam Scatterbo had 30 carries for $143 and 2 touchdowns, they got to a point where Sam Levitt was running for his life in the passing game, but they had to keep going to the air anyway, and it just did not work out. I'm going to say, Zoe, this might be recency bias, and we'll have to evaluate it, but I'm not going to say it was one of the best games we have seen since Texas USC back in the day.
Oh, agreed. It was a very good, and I just want to say, for all the people who don't like this playoff, it's been successful because there are a couple of teams, even though they didn't win against Texas, they wouldn't have been in there. Ohio State would not have been playing in the 4-team scenario. So there are a lot of Penn State would not have been playing in the 4. So we're getting to see that it's being successful. Now, in the end, you may end up with one of the Blue Bloods winning anyway, but still, I mean, I think this definitely has been successful.
The playoff was not about preventing a blue blood from winning. It was about giving everybody else a chance.
Right.
And here's 2 teams that we have just talked about that would not have had a chance in the 14 playoff that did. Arizona State had a chance to win that game. That was the setup. Give teams like Arizona State a chance They had a chance. They missed because Texas is a good football team, but they had a chance. Speaking of good football teams, the Ohio State Buckeyes might be the best team in America right now, based on what they've done in the first 2 rounds of the college football playoff, because all of the sudden, Will Howard has started on the Hey America U tour. 319 yards, 3 touchdowns through the air. Travion Henderson, 8 carries for 94 yards. Quinshon Judkins, 17 for 85. Henderson found the end zone twice on the ground. Jeremiah, who in the hell is Jeremiah Smith? Just the guy who put up a $187 and a pair of tutties. Hey, Ducks. I'm not a big football guy. All right. I've been watching the game a year or two. Not a big football guy, but if a dude ends the first half with 160 yards and a tutty against you, you may want to stop him. You may want to try something. There was a spot in this game, Lonzo. 3rd quarter. Oregon comes out. They score a touchdown. They've got this to a 2-score game. Duck go on defense. Duck get Buck backed all the way up into the back. It is 3rd and 19. 3rd and 19. This is a 3-and-out. If the Ducks get a 3-and-out, get Ohio State to turn the ball over, and they go punch it in the end zone again, we're looking at a very different ball game. We're looking at a game that we're going, maybe the Ohio State Buckeyes are about to get Texas. Maybe the Arizona State Sun Devils of the Big Ten, the Oregon Ducks, are about to slam the door back open, try to wide. And what happens? 3rd and 19 on what would have been a 3-and-out. And what happens? Jeremiah Smith is somehow wide ass open, unguarded. And Will Howard's just like, oh, word. Puts a little dart right on the sideline. Jeremiah Smith gets it. Toe taps on the sideline. Goes out of bounds. 1st and 10. What do the the Ohio State Buckeyes do? Take it 85 yards down the field, punch it into the end zone, match the Ducks touchdown, and kill off the entire 3rd quarter. The whole 3rd quarter became worthless to the Ducks. If they cover up number 4, the best guy on the team, at least in this game, take him out of that play and get a stop on 3rd and 19, they turn around and they go score a touchdown after that, guess what happens? We got a completely different ball game on our hands. Completely different vibe.
All right, I'll disagree, but that's fine. I mean, if you take him out of the game, you still got Ibuka, you got some other guys.
I don't disagree.
I mean, they consistently bring in the next guy receiver-wise that's going to the NFL.
That is absolutely the Ohio State stance to take. I don't disagree with you. But at that point in the game, nobody had done anything but Jeremiah Smith through the air.
Momentum had switched at the end of the 2nd quarter, going into halftime, and they came out in the 3rd quarter, and they got it again. It's like, okay.
Yep.
I kept telling my wife,
tell me you didn't tense up just a little bit.
Well,
when they scored that touchdown to open the 3rd quarter, you didn't tense up a little bit?
I'm a little bit different because I'm a Kansas City fan.
He said, I'm built different.
I'm a Kansas City fan.
I'm built different.
It's just like, I just kept saying, this game ain't over yet. This game ain't over yet. Until that point, when they drove down to score, I was like, okay, we're good now.
If that 3rd and 19 isn't converted, Ohio State punts and Oregon scores, I think you got some coal turning into diamonds, if you get my drift on that one. I think you got some tight orifices. I was trying to figure out what's the most radio-friendly way to say you're clenched up tight, and that's what I came up with. I'm real good at radio, y'all. All right, so there you go. Your 3 of your 4 spots are settled. Texas and Ohio State will play in the Cotton Bowl down in Texas. Little home field advantage for the Longhorns here.
Still, shout out to the scheduling people for putting that on a Friday. Thank you.
And then, of course, the day before that. Although I wonder if they flip these games around. Do they push the Orange Bowl back a day to reflect on the Sugar Bowl champion having to play a day later? Do they push that back a day?
They've already put it on the schedule. Don't do that.
January 9th, 7:30 p.m., the Penn State Nittany Lions. That is a Thursday night, by the way. Not a big fan of that. What the hell are we doing?
Right. That's why I'm glad Ohio State's on Friday. That's why I'm good with that.
Penn State versus the winner of Notre Dame, Georgia on the 9th, Texas and Ohio State on Friday night, the 10th of January, and then we will wait 10 days to declare a national champion on January 20th, which is, of course, as all common sense says it should be, on a Monday night. Come on, college football. I approve of the playoff expansion. I approve of everything you've done so far. Why are we playing the Natty on a Monday? Why are we playing the Natty on a Monday? Do better.
Because there'll be NFL playoffs on the weekend, right?
Do it on Saturday.
Yeah, there'll be an NFL playoff game on Saturday, right?
By the way, the Nielsen ratings are out for the 2 college playoff games versus the NFL games. NFL handed college football its ass in the ratings.
Of course they did.
Like, not shocking, but surprising. The 2 playoff games up against an NFL game averaged like 6.4 million viewers. The 2 college playoff games not against an NFL game averaged like 14 million. That's a lot of people. That's a lot of people, man. All right, take a break. We'll come back. We'll discuss a little bit more college football. We're going to get into the NFL and more. Rob Brown, the Great with Lonzo, the Rob Brown Show rolls on us. The Fan Upstate.
You sure it's a Fan Upstate?
No, I hesitated there for a second.
Well, I mean, you have been hosting national shows. So I forget where you are. So possible.
I did call BetMGM tonight, the Rob Brown Show, like 3 times last night.
I hope they mentioned that to you and made fun of it, but they probably just let it go.
They did. Maybe because who else were they going to call last minute to get to step in and host that show? All right, you guys stay right there. I'll be back in 30 seconds. Got to hit the head. Don't go anywhere.
This convict bread is good. You know you're on, right?
Yeah. I mean, no, I didn't, but I forgot to push loop, so we're on. Hi, everybody.
It's delayed.
No, so when we go to video, there's an option for me to loop the video around, which keeps it on until I tell it to turn off, and I forgot to do that.
I know it's delayed. You're delayed.
Yeah, because for some reason I need to talk to Chris. The last couple of days, like my browser is using the Wi-Fi and not the box, and I can't tell because it looks fine on my computer.
Started making my own sandwiches again and knocking off about 100 calories by making my own.
Nice.
And eating bread that I know doesn't have certain things that I'm trying to avoid. It's convict bread.
Convict bread?
There's this brand called Dave's.
Okay.
And he hires only ex-convicts who can't get jobs to make the bread and stuff. Bread's really good. Hello, Stephen.
America.
Join our live stream, facebook.com/The Fan Upstate, The Fan Upstate on YouTube, or The Rob Brown Show on Facebook, on YouTube, and on Twitch. We stream all 4 hours of the show live every day that we are doing a show. And this is true. We are doing a show right now. So we are streaming live, facebook.com/Fan Upstate, The Fan Upstate on YouTube, The Rob Brown Show on Facebook, on YouTube, and on Twitch. Get liked up and subscribed up and join us every morning. We are trying to take our streaming community to new heights in 2025.
Starting next week for like 3 weeks, I think 3 weeks, we're going to like do 5 shows a week.
Ugh,
I know.
dude.
Well, in our case, like 6 shows a week, and and in your case, even more.
Yeah. I've already been told that once the football season is over, that the BetQL network has like a swell of hosts that are taking their vacations once football concludes. And the VP, who has become a buddy of mine since I started working for BetQL, the VP the other was like, look, dude, when the boys start taking vacations, you're going to get called on a lot. Like end of January, early February into March, you're going to get called on a lot, which is great. Except for they call me predominantly to ask me to do the show that ends at 11 p.m. And if you've listened to me, you know it's high octane radio when Rob Brown does the show. And so you end up in a spot where I'm like, I'm not ready to go to bed until I went to bed at like 12:30, 1 o'clock this morning to then get up at 3:45 to come in here and do this show. There's gonna be some fights. There's going to be some struggles. Y'all go ahead. When you hear me start popping up once or twice a week from 7 to 11 p.m., go ahead and invest in Monster. Because I haven't had an energy drink in like a couple of weeks now. I'm trying to be better. I'm trying to get, and I'm trying to get healthier, and B, kidney stones. Trying to avoid those because, I turned 40 in like 2 months. And that is one thing I've been told happens a lot.
So you don't have any?
No.
Okay.
No.
All right.
No. I don't yet, but I also have been told those don't help you in preventing them. But when I get to the point that I'm doing both shows, yeah, I'm going to like a lot. So let's get to some football here, shall we? We have got the Sugar Bowl coming up tonight. What's your lean on this game, Lonzo? Because I said earlier in the show, this is a narrative game that I'm really intrigued in. It is a narrative game in that for a lot of years, Notre Dame has been a team that has consistently convinced us that they're ready, gotten onto the big stage, and been clearly not ready. On the flip side, this Georgia team is a team that over the past handful of years under Kirby Smart has convincingly told us they are ready and then been ready. But you have got a couple of different things. Number one, you got Marcus Freeman, who is like opposite of Brian Kelly in every single way, right? Like Marcus Freeman is an authentic dude. Brian Kelly is a poser. Marcus Freeman is a dude that is 100% like the supportive coach that you want to play for. Brian Kelly's the dude that has regularly been caught telling his kids how much they suck on the sideline. Marcus Freeman is young, hip, cool. Brian Kelly is like that old coach who just won't get out of his stubborn ways and refuses to change. I got a quarterback finally at Notre Dame, and Riley Leonard, that is the guy that I need him to be, right? A guy that can move with his legs, but doesn't unless he absolutely has to. I've got a Notre Dame defense that, even though there have been some good defenders that have come through Notre Dame, this is the first time I've looked and said, oh, it's not about that one guy or those two guys. This is a good team defense in Notre Dame. But then there's the other side of the ball. And I went into round number 2. I said it on Denton Day's show on Wednesday morning. I said it on BetMGM tonight when I was on last week. I've said it on this show last week going into round 2. Round number 2 to me, I was going to stop thinking so much when I make my picks. Round 1, I overthought it. And I do think, I asked this question, so you tell me if this is the case. I think a lot of us that were looking for upsets, maybe even picking upsets in the round 1 games, in the on-campus games, were we genuinely convinced that these big-time dogs, SMU and Indiana and all these other teams that got smoked, Tennessee that got smoked, do we really believe they have a chance? Or were we just trying to create a first round with some drama to justify a 12-team playoff?
Well, as far as the Tennessee game goes, I get why you thought that Tennessee was going to win, because you saw what Ohio State did against Michigan.
Yeah.
So,
and I saw what Tennessee did to a lot of other teams.
Yeah. So I get why you picked that. Obviously you were wrong, but I get why you picked that. Some of the other stuff, I mean, and I get also the complaints about the first round was, you remember I said chalk.
Yeah.
Just because a lot of these teams.
Even if you said chalk, though, it was 4 ass whoopings.
It
right?
was. And then
did you see 4 straight up beatdowns? Or did you just see 4 wins? Because if you'd have told me all 4 home teams are going to win, I'd have said that makes sense. I did not think all 4 teams were going to dominate.
I'm not going to do they usually pick the better teams and not the guys with the better records. Hey, the guys who won their championship, they deserve to be in. I mean, if they lost, they lost, but they deserve to be in. That's part of the rules. Yeah, I thought it was going to be like what it was.
Again, if you'd have told me,
and I thought Texas was, but yesterday I thought Texas was going to boat race.
A lot of people, they were 13.5 points.
Yeah, I thought that was going to, and it looked like it was going to.
Yeah, for a minute. Again, that's why I said that Oregon touchdown to end the first half and to start the second half was really interesting, because you're like, are we going to get back-to-back barn burners that look like they were over at the half? But if you'd have told me all 4 favorites we're going to win in round 1, I'd have said, okay, unsurprising. That, for the record, and I do think this is going to be true as long as we have first round on-campus games, I think overwhelmingly home teams are going to win the vast majority of round 1 games. Even if we go to 16 and everybody plays a first round game, if the top 8 seeds all play at home, more often than not, 6 or more of the home teams are going to win. It's hard to win on the road against good football teams in college football. That's why we celebrate it when it happens. I'm not shocked by that. If you'd have told me all 4 games are going to be absolute beatdowns, I'd have been like, no, somebody's going to make a case, right? Somebody's going to make a run. Nobody did. Now, as I said on the show earlier this week, I said it last week as well, that does not change the way I feel about the selection committee. I think the selection committee got it right, even though I will go one step further and say, those of you that are utilizing, say, South Carolina's loss to Illinois, we're going to talk about that coming up in a few minutes, 8 o'clock. Lulu Kesson of the Greenville News is going to join us, and we'll break down the Cheez-Its Bowl with her. For those of you who said, is this the South Carolina team? It's not the same team. It's not the same team. You're telling me without Rocket Sanders and Kyle Kennard, one of the SEC's comeback player of the year and the best defender in the league, you're telling me that's the same team? You're telling me it wouldn't have been a different look if Kennard was out there? Of course it would have. It's not the same team. Oh, we're coming to the T-pose as well from Brett Bielema. I think there are some interesting things that have to be discussed, some interesting things that have to be talked about. But I don't think the playoffs were wrong. I don't think the seeding process was wrong. I don't think the 1 through 12 was wrong. I don't think any of it was bad or wrong. I think it's hard to win on the road against good teams. And the 4 teams that went on the road not only weren't as good, the 4 teams that went on the road were also just outgunned by 4 teams that earned the right to play at home in round 1. So, I'm not upset about it. Because you turned around, you had a spectacular game between Texas and Arizona State. You had another beatdown, right? Is anybody going to make the argument if you were saying that the teams who got in and got boat raced in round 1 shouldn't have been there? Are you going to tell me the Oregon Ducks shouldn't have been there? Are you going to tell me the Ducks because they got no? Of course you're not. Of course you're not.
By the way, even the most ardent fan of Ohio State didn't see that kind of thing happen.
Nobody saw that coming.
I was happy with it, but
Yeah.
I thought it was going to be a close game, and it was not.
Nobody saw that coming. And if nobody saw that coming, it makes sense that you just got to look and go, dude, it's the playoffs. Sometimes guys are going to get whooped. That's just how it goes. All right, we'll come back. We'll talk a little bit more college football. We got Lulu Kesson at 8 o'clock to talk Cheez-Its Bowl. No Rashad Beard today. He's going to join us tomorrow. We do have Hayden Ask Mario at 9, Fight Club at 9:20. All coming up on the Rob Brown Show and the Fan Upstate. Oh, yay. We got a polar vortex coming, guys.
Yeah, it's
Huzzah.
I think Sunday night into Monday, I think is what I saw.
Come on, Lonzo, hurry up. Get on the hustle bus. Be right back, guys. They're right there for me. Yep, Stephen. Unfortunately, we learned about that once in my past. About a burst pipe and how much of a pain in the rear end that turns out to be.
Fast and easy online term life insurance. Up to $2 million in coverage with no medical exam. Some policies as low as $1 a day. Answer a few health questions and get your free quote at getethos.com. That's getethos.com. Diesel here from the fan upstairs. Join me every Sunday at Dave & Buster's on Lucas Road from 1 to 2 p.m. Catch all the biggest games and try the Eat and Play combo, an entree, drink, and a $10 power card for just $19.99. But hurry, it's limited time offer. I love this song! I love nachos. Loving everything? You might be buzzed. You know what I love? A ride when it's time to head out. If you see Buzz more inside, call for a ride when it's time to go home. Buzz driving is
Happy New Year, Will. First basketball game Monday. They've only practiced like 4 times. I'm ready for chaos. I have no idea how this thing's going to work. Yeah, you need to push this. The text line.
I don't have access to it yet, so I'll tell you about that next week.
Oh, okay.
We had a big to do about it.
I saw a bunch of emails. I just
Yeah,
read
I'll tell you about it next week. The Rob Brown Show rolls on. It's the Fan Upstate. We're going to talk about the Gamecocks bowl game coming up here in the next segment with Lulu Keston of the Greenville News. Let's talk about what we have learned or are waiting to officially learn, I suppose, about the Clemson Tigers. Being reported by the Post and Courier that defensive coordinator Wes Goodwin is being removed from that position by the Clemson Tiger football program. Not unshocking to me, to be honest with you. Number one, all you need to do is to look at the numbers that have been posted by the Clemson defense before and after he took over as the defensive coordinator of this team. The Tigers' yards per rush has gotten worse year by year under Wes Goodwin. In the last season of Brent Venables, Clemson allowed 2.8 yards per carry. In Goodwin's first season, it went up by half a yard to 3.3, then 3.8 in his second season. This year, Clemson surrendered 4.7 yards per rush. Now, I'm bad at math, but if a team is averaging 4.7 yards per rush, that means they get 3 carries and they get a first down. Again, not great at math, but that's what it is. Then I think that was exacerbated by the results of the playoffs. The Clemson Tigers allowed Texas in the opening round playoff game to rush for 292 yards. Texas against Arizona State ran for, 53? That's again, not good at numbers. Very big difference. 292 down to less than 55 yards. I go back to the game. A game that Clemson lost at home. A game that damn near cost Clemson a playoff spot. Louisville ran for 215 yards against Clemson in Death Valley. Clemson checked in with the 84th ranked defense nationally against the run. They allowed an average of 161 yards per game. Now, that might be one thing if you were paired it up with, like, say, a top 2 or 3 pass defense, but that wasn't elite either. Clemson's pass defense was ranked 58th in yards allowed per game, averaging nearly 214 yards per game. Every defensive metric got worse for Clemson, and it got worse year after year under Wes Goodwin. And I told you, if you were listening to the show on Monday and Tuesday, I told you why. It's because under Wes Goodwin, this defense, in my ever so humble opinion, played soft. Now, when I say soft, I do not mean they played soft in terms of mentality. I do not mean that they played soft in terms of their mindset their desire to attack the football, whatever. What I mean by playing soft is they played a soft defense. I go back to the South Carolina game, which I think is the one where it kind of clicked for me that, oh, this is a problem. I go back to that South Carolina game, a game that Clemson, I don't want to say had in the bag because it stayed a 1 to 10-point game for the majority of the game. But a game that felt like was an inevitable Clemson win. And then we get to the fourth quarter. And then Lenore Sellers starts doing Lenore Seller things. And it was the exact same vibe that Kevin Jennings and SMU had in the ACC title game, a game that they damn near won too. It got to a point where you have a quarterback who can move just a little bit. And instead of this team deciding that they are going to continue to be aggressive, that they are going to continue to attack, that they are going to continue to push the offense around a little bit, all of the sudden, Clemson's dropping back into a soft zone defense. They are not attacking the quarterback with more than 4. And when you have a guy like a Lenore Sellers, when you have a guy like a Kevin Jennings, they're going to eat you alive with that. I'm not saying you got to blitz every play. I'm not saying you got to be off the cuff every single play. What I am saying is you've got to be comfortable taking a man out of coverage. You got to be comfortable at the very least putting a spy on somebody and saying, if this cat moves to the line of scrimmage, so do you. Your job is to hold him up enough for the cavalry to arrive. And I don't think Clemson did that at any point. You add into that the fact that you were giving up nearly 5 yards a carry on average, and you don't keep quarterbacks honest in the pocket. I don't know what you expect was going to be the case there. And there were some other stuff. I think there were some spots where I don't want to say Wes Goodwin was unaware of certain spots that you needed the best version of him. But if he was aware of it, he certainly did not play call like it, right? And I've heard this. This is not just my take. I have heard this from a handful of different Clemson fans, guys who cover the game. We'll ask John Blau about it when we roll back up in here on Monday at 8:40 when John Blau with the Post and Courier joins us. But I think that there were a number of spots throughout the year, but I think in the 3 games that were most pivotal, the South Carolina game, the ACC title game, and the playoff game against Texas. I think that there were spots where Clemson's defense basically became just kind of a soft zone. And that what that does is creates a world where you don't say you're going to have to do something special to beat us. That creates a spot where you just say, you just got to play offense to beat us, right? Like we're going to allow you to have your best weapon. I go look at the Penn State defense in the first 2 games of the playoffs. I go back and I look at round number 1 against Indiana. Do you know what I saw? I saw a Penn State team that got after Kevin Rourke and said, we're not going to let you be Kevin Rourke. If you're going to beat us, you're going to have to beat us with a run game that we don't think that you have. And they attacked the quarterback, and they never got going, Indiana. And then I look at round 2 against Boise State. And what did Penn State do? Exactly what I said they were going to do. We are going to take Ashton Jeanty away from you. We're going to play on, if you'll allow me to borrow a hockey phrase, we're going to play on the forecheck. We're going to play on our toes. We're going to play downhill. We're going to play at you. We're going to take away those zone and those ISO runs that you guys love to use to spring number 2. We are going to take that away from you, and we're going to attack you. And if you're going to beat us, you're going to have to do something spectacular. And Boise State could not arrange something spectacular to get it done. And when that became the case, all of a sudden, a Boise State team that, yes, in my opinion, deserved to be there. A running back in Ashton Jeanty that was a deserving Heisman Trophy finalist, deserved to be there. All of a sudden, he was gone. I mean, yeah, he got 100 yards, but it took him 30 carries to do it. Ashton Jeanty was getting 100 yards and 10 carries all season long. Penn State said, yeah, we're not letting you do that. That's absolutely not happening. If you're going to beat us, and you might, you're going to beat us somewhere else. Clemson, I thought, did the exact opposite. I go back to the South Carolina game. We got Will in the live stream chat right now that said Sellers breaking at least 6 sacks is one reason that game turned. Still need to be better against the run regardless. Think about the SC game. They should have just dared Sellers to throw. I agree. It's like Wes either sent everyone or just tried to hold on for dear life in a soft zone. Yes, that's it. And again, I'm not arguing that you send everybody. That's not it either. Because a guy like a Kevin Jennings, a guy like a Lenora Sellers can still beat you with the arm. I'm not saying the answer is a zero dog, all out, all gap jailbreak blitz. Not at all. What I'm saying is you play your defense, but you play it downhill. You play aggressive to the quarterback, but you say, we're not going to give you the easy passes. We're not going to sit back in a soft zone. We're not going to give you time, which is one thing that I think Jennings got in the second half of that game against Clemson in the ACC title game, something I thought Lenora Sellers got too much of in the South Carolina game in the fourth quarter. We're not going to give you time because you know what time does? Time allows wide receivers to get down the field, to see where the zone is, to find the soft spot, and to sit down in it. And it allows the quarterback time to watch his wide receivers get down the field, identify the zone, and sit down in it. And if that is the case, of course they're going to beat you. And if you drop an extra guy back to tighten up that zone at all, a guy like a Kevin Jennings, a guy like a Lenora Sellers is going to put the ball away and they're going to take off running. And that's what happened in both those games. There were too many spots, in my opinion. There were too many spots where the defense for Clemson just played soft. I don't want to say played scared. I don't want to say played poorly. They just played a legitimately soft defense. And I think it cost Wes Goodwin his job. Because on top of all of that, I don't necessarily know, and he's never going to say that this is the case. I don't necessarily know that Dabo Swinney needed a scapegoat. He won the ACC. He got into the college football playoffs. He got the floor waxed in round number 1 with his own backside, but he won the conference. And he got back into the playoff. So I don't need that. I don't think Dabo needed a scapegoat, but I will tell you that it doesn't hurt you to have one in this spot. And so at a point in time where I've got Dabo Swinney, who already went outside of the program to bring in Garrett Riley, who already went outside of the program to make the offensive coordinator change, who has grabbed a couple of transfer portal players. We had John Blau on Monday's show. And I said, here's a guy that's, why am I going Chris Collinsworth? Here's a guy that has not traditionally been a portal guy, and he's got 2. And he said, well, Rob Brown, I do have to point out that these are the first 2 that he's gotten, not the first 2 he's offered. Clemson has made a number of offers to players in the portal. They just have been spurned by them. They just have not finished up and signed those cats. This is just the first time that Clemson's went after and got a guy out of the portal. And I think that's fair to the conversation. But it's also, even though they got these guys, I would make the point that this feels like a point where maybe Dabo Swinney is kind of waving the white flag on the Clemson way, the Dabo philosophy, right? This is one of his guys, historically speaking. And I've been Clemson fans, if you feel that I'm stepping out of line here, let me know. But it has been traditionally a moment of hesitation for Dabo Swinney to let go of one of his guys, one of his Clemson guys that he elevated through the program. He's let 2 of them go now in the last couple of years. Both of his coordinators since the departures of Tony Elliott and Brent Venables to Virginia and Oklahoma, respectively. He's now let 2 coordinators go. He's now brought in a couple of portal guys. It feels to me like perhaps, and I could be wrong here, but it feels to me like perhaps Clemson fans are getting their way, and this is Dabo going, the college football sphere has changed, and it's time for me to change with it, or else we're going to continue to just rest in the middle of the pack. And you don't want to do that. The iron is cooling for the proverbial striking of it while it is hot. If you let it cool too much, how many times have I said, every day that you're not keeping up with Georgia, Georgia's getting further ahead of you. Every day you're not keeping up with Ohio State, they're getting further ahead of you. Every day you don't keep up with even 9-3 teams like Alabama and South Carolina, they are creating distance. It feels to me like, could be wrong, but I don't think I am. It feels to me like this is a point where Dabo's waving the white flag on the Dabo philosophy and moving into the modern era of college football. And respectfully, that's a good thing for Clemson. It really is. All right, we'll talk more about that. We got Lulu Kess into the Greenville News to talk South Carolina bowl game. When we come back, Rob Alonzo and you on the Rob Brown Show here, ladies and gentlemen, is your favorite part of the show, Lonzo Sports Flash.
As it should be. You're welcome. 3 of the 4 spots in the college football playoff semifinals have been claimed, and the winner of today's Sugar Bowl will decide the last one. Texas escaped Arizona State in double overtime with a 39-31 win on the back of 322 yards and 3 touchdown passes from Quinn Ewers, outdueling Cam Scadaboo's 143-yard, 2-touchdown rushing day. It was pretty wild. The Ohio State University destroyed number 1 Oregon with a 41-21 win behind Will Howard's 319 yards, 3-touchdown day, including a 187 and 2 touchdowns to Jeremiah Smith. Penn State is in after a 31-14 win over Boise State behind Katron Allen's 134 rushing yards. The Nittany Lions await the winner of today's Georgia versus Notre Dame matchup. So this Saturday at 3:30 as the Furman Paladins take on the UNC Greensboro Spartans. It's Furman versus UNC Greensboro right here on the Fan Upstate. We'll be back in just a moment.
Hour number 3 of the Rob Brown Show goes now. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Fan Upstate, Rob, and the return of the great one, Lonzo.
I am the hype.
Here on a Thursday AM. Happy New Year to all of you. We were off yesterday. I got to tell you, I thought I was going to go bananas New Year's Eve. I'm not going to lie to you. I was on the couch in pajama pants with a wife, a dog, and a cat. We did the little champagne toast at midnight, and your boy was in the bed watching Law and Order SVU at like 12:30. Really intense episode, by the way. Really intense.
How can you do that right before you go to sleep? That will cause some disturbing dreams, I'm thinking.
Dude, I'm a podcast when I fall asleep guy. I can't fall asleep in silence. I got to have some noise. My most recent one. And this is a wonderful thing to say with Lulu Kesson joining us on the phone line. I'm hoping it's not going to mean it's our last appearance. My podcast that I've been listening to the last couple of nights is on medieval torture methods.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
I make no excuses for myself. I'm a weirdo. I don't know what you want.
So
right?
We're talking about the rack, the Iron Maiden.
Oh, there's been the wheel.
Okay.
Yeah. The process
The
of drawing and
finger
quartering.
thing.
Yep.
Yeah, I forget what that's
Yeah.
called.
There's some weird ones. People were interesting.
I put Lulu on in case you wanted to
Oh, no,
comment.
for sure.
She's
Listen,
probably in stunned silence.
I
right
have
now.
no doubt that I am currently and appropriately being judged by the lovely Lulu Kesson from the Greenville News, who joins us here on the show. Good morning. Happy New Year, Lulu, and thanks for putting up with my complete weirdness.
Good morning, Happy New Year, and hey, to each their own. No judgment from me. Everyone has their interests.
That's why we like Lulu Kesson. What's the comfort show of choice? What's your put it on in the background? You're banging out an article. You're trying to get the latest Beamer news and info up there. You got to put something on in the background. What's the comfort watch for you?
I honestly, I'm not trying to sound lame. I don't necessarily have those like guilty pleasure comfort shows. However, sometimes if I need to relax, I'll put on Curious George, the kids show.
Hey, listen, I'm going to tell you straight up, Lulu Kesson, I'm a big Phineas and Ferb guy. I own a Perry the Platypus t-shirt. I'm not judging at all. You have my blessing.
That's like the exact opposite of Curious George. I mean, how much dialogue is there in Curious George?
There's not a ton. I mean, the man in the yellow hat talks.
The man in the yellow hat does talk.
George doesn't.
That is correct. I'm not mad at it at all. Like if you're telling me, I'll tell you, I'll still pop back into some classic Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the early animated series. That there's something about regressing into the childhood for just a minute that's very comforting. I don't care who judges me for it, Lulu Kesson.
But you're old and she's not.
Shut up, Lonzo. Nobody asked you. Nobody asked you. Lulu Kesson from the Greenville News joins us every Monday at 8:40 to talk Gamecock athletics. We'll get into the women's basketball team here in just a minute. But, Lulu Kesson, let's talk a little bit about this bowl game. And I will start with a subjective take, and it's this. I saw the people making the rounds saying if this team is a team that you thought should have made the playoffs, eat this, whatever, blah, 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 blah. Listen, I know that South Carolina really only had a few opt-outs, but two of them, Rocket Sanders, Kyle Kennard, massive opt-outs. Two of the best players in the SEC at their respective positions. 36,000-foot view. What was your takeaway from the bowl game, or maybe more importantly, the extra practices that South Carolina was able to take advantage of to get there?
Yeah, I mean, the bowl game situation is very hard. I think Lenore Sellers said it best to us earlier in the week. He was like, it's really like laid back, but it's also like a game. So it's kind of confusing. And like, even as a reporter, this was my first bowl game. That was sort of the vibe. Every day you were trying to kind of make sense of, okay, this is a serious, important game that means a lot to both of these programs, especially South Carolina and Illinois. It was kind of a different situation compared to some other bowl games. They were both obviously 9-3, wanted a historic 10th win for their respective programs. So it was kind of like figuring out how much exactly it meant to each player and each of the teams, I guess, overall throughout the week. And then once the game actually happened, it was sort of like, okay, how much is this going to cause people to look at the rest of the season and, either take away or if you're Illinois, add to what they've done in the past couple of years. And I obviously saw a lot of what you saw, which was a lot of, okay, this is a South Carolina team that wanted to be in the playoffs, yada, yada, you know, like it's obviously not a great look for the SEC that Alabama and South Carolina did not win their respective bowl games after everyone thought that they both deserved to be in the playoffs. But it was definitely an off day, in my opinion. Just watching South Carolina, the best way I could describe how they played was just off.
Lulu Kesson joining us here on the Rob Brown Show and the Fan Upstate. Go on about that a little bit more, if you don't mind. You said the play was just off. The way I looked at it, Lulu, and I will acknowledge that I may have perhaps been looking for some silver linings in a loss that would have given them that 10-win total. That would have been kind of a prestigious accomplishment for Shane Beamer. I looked at that as more of a beginning, a first look at what next year's team is going to be. I thought that there was, especially in the first half, an emphasis on Lenora Sellers staying in the pocket and throwing the football, an emphasis on getting some young guys some opportunities to run routes down the field, try to improve on the passing game so that next year you don't have to ask Lenora Sellers to carry the team literally as many times as he did down the stretch this year. Am I just being a little bit too fan optimistic with that take?
No, and I think I'm just gonna be clear. I think Lenoris, don't get me wrong, I'm the biggest advocate for what Lenoris can do and did this year, but I think Lenoris was one of the worst players on the field on Tuesday. Tuesday was the game. I just think that he looked hesitant. I think he just didn't. Obviously, if he made one throw to Josh Simon, they win the game. But even more so, he had many missed throws throughout the game. He would stop running when he had, a lot of open field in front of him. So with that said, for me, it was kind of tricky because I heard a lot of the, oh, wow, like they're so screwed next year not having Rocket on offense. But it's like, it's kind of hard for me to judge because I didn't think Lenoris played well at all. So I think that maybe exposed more of, or kind of like misled a bigger drop off without having Rocket next year than they actually might have, because they're bringing back a lot of talented wide receivers, Jared Brown, Nick Harbor, Mazeo Bennett. They're all going to be back. I believe Oscar Attaway has another year of eligibility, though he has not said what he's going to do. But that's all to say, it's tricky for me to really look at what next year on offense will look like, because I was so excited to see what I thought would be an accurate representation of it. Yes, the other day, but with Lenoris kind of just playing badly, it's hard to judge what's actually going to be an issue next year and what was actually just a result of the quarterback having an off day.
Let's talk a little bit, because obviously the big story in this game, Lulu Kesson, was the showdown between Shane Beamer and Brett Bielema, the head coach of the Illinois Illini. Bielema, of course, came over to check on an injured player, kind of threw up the T-pose at Shane Beamer. And there's a lot more context to this conversation. There were some spots where South Carolina players catching footballs were throwing up the T and trying to maybe take advantage of, faking the let it be sign, yada, yada, yada. I don't know if that's what Bielema was doing. I do know that after the game, Shane Beamer was still pretty heated about the concept of being told what he did was inappropriate on the sideline and yada, yada, yada. My thought was, my dude in a game where his offense realizes, oh, we're in a game and we can still win this game. It's like a baseball manager getting tossed out trying to fire up his squad. I thought he was just doing it for the emotion and all that. But there's been a narrative about Shane Beamer for a lot of years that he can be in high pressure spots a bit of a hothead. What was your take away from that whole Bielema-Beamer showdown?
So it's funny because on Monday I wrote a story, or my story came out about the emotional side of Shane Beamer, where I got to sit down in his office for like over an hour and just talk to him about his emotions. And I'm totally not saying this back to you as like anything, but like he said, yeah, when I cry and we win, people celebrate it. When I cry and we lose, people think it's a weakness. Like he kind of just said, I'm gonna be who I am no matter what, because no matter what happens, people are going to criticize me or celebrate me for the same thing that I'm being. And I think in this specific scenario, obviously Beamer cried post-game. I don't think that's the same form of him showing emotion as when the whole situation happened to end the third quarter. I will say he was fired up at the refs in the first quarter. Like, South Carolina, I'm not just saying this because I'm a reporter for them, like, they were getting held play after play. I think at one point Beamer was arguing because South Carolina got called for holding. He was like, how can you call that and not that? He was already on edge. And then I think later there were some other situations and kind of plays that happened. And to me, it just felt like Brett coming over and doing what he thought was a gesture and calling his team, unethical was the straw that broke the camel's back. And I think had a couple other things in the game not happened, I don't see Beamer reacting as, like he did if a couple other factors didn't play into it.
We are speaking with Lulu Kesson, covers the Gamecock athletic department for the Greenville News. Joins us every Monday at 8 a.m. to talk some Gamecock sports with us. Now that this season is officially put away, well, I'll tell you what, let's finish up with the bowl game itself. Illinois obviously gets the win. And I for the record, I do think that's a better football team than a lot of people gave it credit for, Lulu Kesson. But again, I look at the bowl games. I don't particularly care. You want to win. We always want to win. You want your teams to do well, yada, yada, yada. That's all well and good. At the end of the day, from an outside looking in perspective, to me, the bowl games are meaningless. They're irrelevant. They're 17 practices and a paycheck. They're an opportunity to put some young guys out there, give them a chance to get some in-game XP and level up a little bit. Do you think that this is something that throws a wrench into the momentum that South Carolina was building, or is this one that you think this program is going to pretty easily put in the rearview mirror and start getting ready for 2025?
I think it'll be the latter, mainly because of the end of the season that they had, minus the bowl game, was so strong that I think they have a lot to point to towards, the end consistently, unlike, an Alabama or an Ole Miss, and this isn't a jab at them, but who had a lot of success in the early half of the season, and then things kind of went south towards the latter half. So I think South Carolina is going to, have no choice but to kind of buy in to, buy into the last part of the season and what they did in their win streak and everything like that. And I agree. I think I was worried about Illinois. I was like, this is a very good team, and South Carolina's a 10-point favorite. Like, I just felt like there was something that people were ignoring there. And obviously they proved that people were ignoring what they could do for sure.
We are talking to Lulu Kesson of the Greenville News. What becomes Lulu Kesson? And obviously we will check in as we wrap up the college football season with the national championship on the 20th. We've got signing day less than a couple of months away now in February at this point. So it's obviously very early in the offseason for the Gamecocks. But if I asked you right now what you think the biggest points of emphasis are for getting ready for next football season, whether it's your opinion or something that Shane Beamer said to you or whatever, what do you think those biggest points of emphasis might be?
I think, it's interesting because teams in the bowl game get 6 extra days to enter the transfer portal. So within the next 6 days, a player from South Carolina could decide to leave. So obvious, just eyes on that, kind of looking at who maybe thought to wait and see how the bowl game went and then decided to leave. Shane's going to be without a lot of key players on defense next year. That's obvious. I think that's a area that he's going to work on, whether that's in the transfer portal or just, getting his current underclassmen ready to fill some pretty big shoes. But I liked what Brian Thomas Jr. did with Dylan Stewart, replacing Kyle Kennard. I think there's definitely something there. But to me, an easy but an obvious kind of area to look at is I think Shane needs a better kicker for 2025 and just needs a kicker that he's confident in, that can give more consistent range and just more consistency. That'll be something I know it's small and less big picture than you were asking about, but something that I'm kind of looking at these next couple months is how that position comes to be.
Lulu Kessin with the Greenville News joins us every single Monday morning before we cut you loose to get back to your, I keep saying Monday, every Thursday. It feels like a Monday to me. It's been a lot of work. Every Thursday morning here at 8 a.m. Before we let you go, Lulu Kessin, because we are going to start to transition to our basketball coverage over the next couple of weeks as we wrap up the college football season. Give us an update on where everything stands. Anything interesting you've got for us for the women's basketball team?
Yeah, well, it's fun that SEC play obviously starts today. It'll be interesting to see how South Carolina does in these first couple of games because I think I mentioned before, like they've really had some trouble with some slow starts lately against some teams that are just worse than them, to be blunt but honest. And so with SEC play, like it's just a different level of intensity. Teams are just catered more to South Carolina's style. There's similarities there. So it'll be cool to kind of see how South Carolina's learned and improved the last couple of days. And then heading into January, they have a huge stretch and they play, I believe they play LSU, then Tennessee back-to-back. And Tennessee is obviously undefeated right now with a new coach, trying to figure out who they will become in SEC play. So there's a lot to look forward to. South Carolina has Missouri tonight in Mizzou Arena. They'll be without Maddie McDaniel, who has a concussion, but besides that, and Sakima Walker, who is dealing with an ankle injury but doesn't play all too much so far. Everyone's healthy, and they should be able to come out on top.
Lulu Kessin covers the Gamecock Athletic Department for the Greenville News and is more than kind enough to join us every Thursday at 8 a.m. to talk Gamecock football, basketball, and everything else. And on top of all of that, did not judge me negatively for my weird podcast while I fall asleep habits. Lulu, you are the best, young lady. Thank you very much, as always, for joining us. We will talk to you next week.
Sure thing. Thanks for having me. See you next week.
Of course. You're the best. Lulu Kessin from the Greenville News joining us here on the show. We're going to run to a break. When we come back here in just a moment from now, we have talked a ton of college football. Now we flip it over to the fellas who ball on Sundays. Week 18 of the regular season is upon us. Let's talk some NFL for the rest of this ride. We have got Hayton-ass Mario Herron from the BetQL Network joining us at 9 o'clock. And then we will have Fight Club with the great one Lonzo coming up at 9:20. Had Dex Harwood on the show earlier this week. I got to tell you, Lonzo, you'd have liked him. He's a genuinely cool dude. Genuinely cool dude. No flips, just fist. Except for the occasional flip.
He was on for charity. I'm not saying anything.
Back after this on the Rob Brown Show in the Fan Upstate. All right, guys, quick live, and we're right back. Stay right there for me, please, and thank you.
Why are they still playing Christmas commercials? Christmas is over.
They really are. It's really just this one, though. It's really just John Travolta as Santa.
It's an amazing commercial
It
if
is
you
a great
find out who
commercial.
all's actually in
Yeah.
it.
The Rob Brown Show continues. No Rashad Beard today. So Zoe and I are going to talk NFL all the way through the end of this hour. We'll have Hayden Ask Mario join us at 9 o'clock in the a.m. to talk NFL and maybe some NBA as well. Fight Club at 9:20. We wrap it all off with what the X is going on, and then we shall call it a day after that. But let's talk some NFL, and let's talk a little bit about the playoff scenarios that are in play coming up for this weekend. Because I'll tell you, there's really not a ton of them that really matter. Now, there are a handful of teams that are not involved in playoff races that have some level of control over the outcomes of these games. But by and large, the majority of teams are either locked in, locked out, and are playing in games that don't really matter all that much. Let's start over in the AFC. Here's what we know. We know that the Kansas City Chiefs have locked up the 1 seed in the bye. We know that the Buffalo Bills have locked up the 2 seed and home field advantage all the way up until the AFC title game when they would have to go to Kansas City if they make it. Both of those teams make it. We know that the Pittsburgh Steelers, the Baltimore Ravens, the Houston Texans, and the LA Chargers are in. So what do we have left to be decided? Well, we start with the AFC North. The Baltimore Ravens are 11-5. The Pittsburgh Steelers are 10-6. Both of these teams are alive to win that division. The Baltimore Ravens win with a win or a tie over the Cleveland Browns on Saturday at 4:30. The Ravens can also get the division title with a loss, assuming Pittsburgh loses or ties against Cincinnati. Now, the obvious and most likely outcome here is that Baltimore just beats the Cleveland Browns and they win the division. If they do not, then it comes down to the Steelers and the Bengals. Pittsburgh can win the division with a win and a Baltimore loss to Cleveland, but that one is not all that much of a granted. Why? Because even though they are 8-8, the Bengals ain't dead yet. Cincinnati can still clinch a playoff berth. Now, they need some combinations of things to happen. Number one, they've got to beat Pittsburgh. That is obviously not a granted. Number two, they need a Denver loss against the Chiefs. That becomes a little less likely because Andy Reid said yesterday they're rolling the backups, or at least backup quarterback, as Carson Wentz is going to get the nod for the Chiefs, and Patrick Mahomes will get the opportunity to sit down and rest that leg in the final week of the season. But that is not all that they need. They also need the Miami Dolphins to take an L or a tie against the Jets this weekend. You look at what happened to the Jets last weekend when the Bills decimated them, and you'd think maybe that's still in play. I'd say hold your horses just a little bit here because we're seeing a somewhat dejected Aaron Rodgers this week. Aaron Rodgers is starting his 241st game, and there's a lot of question marks. Aaron Rodgers has already said that he's going to give himself till March to decide if he wants to come back next year, but Aaron Rodgers is also speaking as if perhaps the Jets aren't going to bring him back next year. He has said in an interview in a podcast earlier this week that, well, you know, if this is my last time suiting up for the Jets, I want them to know it's been great and blah, 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 all well and good. On one hand, that can motivate Aaron Rodgers to go out there and be the best version of himself we've seen so far this season. On the other hand, Aaron Rodgers may have shut it down already. He may just be done, and that's why Buffalo beat the hell out of him and the Jets last weekend. So nothing is off the table here. The Bengals aren't dead, though they need a Denver loss and a Miami loss to get in. That's only interesting because the Bengals play Saturday night. They play before the other games. The Broncos play on Sunday at 4:25, so do the Dolphins. The Bengals, the games on Sunday don't matter unless they win. right? If they go in there and they win that game, bang, the Steelers are out just like that, which means that Cincinnati-Pittsburgh is going to be a really interesting game on Saturday at 8 p.m. The Broncos can clinch a playoff spot simply with a win. Simply with a win. Captain Checkdown Bo Nix can make me look like a jackass on the radio because I was writing this team off for dead before the season even started. And yet here they are, a win over Carson Wentz and the Chiefs, not Patty Mahomes, and this team's in the playoffs.
I love how you keep saying that. So you just believe Denver's winning without a doubt. You don't think Carson Wentz can win? Because it's still the Chiefs and still an Andy Reid system. It's just going to depend on how many other starters are not playing.
It does depend on that. You're a 10.5 point underdog. 10.5 points. That's in the NFL, 10.5 points is a big spread.
I've seen backup quarterbacks win for the Chiefs.
Not
before.
saying it's impossible.
So it really, Carson Wentz is not, I'm not saying, oh, well, he's just as good as Patrick Mahomes. I'm not saying that. I'm saying he's good enough to beat Denver if he's the only one that's not playing. Now, if a bunch of other people are not playing, then they're not going to win. But still,
I'm not saying it's unlike or it's a guarantee. If you ask me right now with Carson Wentz at the helm, yeah, I'm favoring the Denver
Hollywood
Broncos.
Brown playing? Is Nuke
all
playing?
Good questions.
I mean,
somebody's got to get him the ball. It's Carson Wentz.
Yeah, right.
You're taking a step. You are taking. Okay, let's clear this up. You yourself have pointed out that Kansas City has been in close games all year long.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And now you're taking Patrick Mahomes off the field. How many points is Patrick Mahomes worth in an average game? I'd say 7.
Agree.
You're a 10.5 point dog here.
But also, Denver and Kansas City absolutely hate each other. So the backups are going to try extra hard to beat the question is, do you want to beat Denver? Do you want Cincinnati in the playoffs?
And that was going to be my next thing was, if I'm Kansas City, I'm rolling out my 5th string. You don't say this in the NFL, but I'm going to say it now. Lonzo, if I'm Kansas City, I'm throwing this game. Honestly, if I was undefeated, right? If I hadn't lost to Josh Allen a few weeks ago, I'd go win this game and I'd have an undefeated regular season for sure. I'd put myself in the history books. But you got a loss. There's no history in being a team that finishes with 1 win. There's a handful of those. I'd go throw this game. I'd go lose this game intentionally because if you're going to tell me who I'd rather see in the playoffs, Joe Burrow at Burrowhead Stadium, or Denver, I'd rather see Bo Nix and Sean Payton in the playoffs than have Joe come to Burrowhead Stadium.
I get all that, but you also should look at the fact that could Joe Burrow knock off Baltimore? Yes. Could he knock off Buffalo? Yes.
Right. Wouldn't you rather have Denver in there? Because here's the thing. If they can knock off Buffalo and they can knock off Baltimore, they can knock off you too.
I get all the logic in this, but I hate Denver. No. I don't want to help Denver make the playoffs.
Again, this is I think the primary difference between you and I on the radio. I got no fan cap on.
By the way,
now.
I get it. I said I get it.
I don't want Joey B in my house.
I get it. I understand. I do because I want to beat him again.
I want Joey B at the crib.
Because it was a motivation last time they came there. Burrowhead, that was a motivation that got Kansas City to play a little bit extra harder to shut all those people up because it was very disrespectful. I want that disrespect to come back again to keep that fire to be the first three-peat champion in the history of the NFL.
I don't. I want the heavyweight on the house. I want the Rook coming to the crib. We'll find out where that goes. And then we mentioned Miami. The Dolphins clinch a playoff berth with a win and a Denver loss to Kansas City. But again, I think Denver. In fact, I've got 2 teams I really like in a parlay this weekend. And that's Denver to win and the Patriots to lose are my 2 money line bets here because the Patriots have the inside track to the number 1 overall seed. And even if they're not going to take a quarterback, they believe Drake May is the guy, which they should. Guy looked real good at spots this season. They're not going to toss that game. So there's your AFC playoff picture. I think the Ravens are clinching the North. The Steelers will get a wild card. I think that Denver is going to beat Kansas City because Kansas City should lose this game. They are going to end up getting a wild card spot. I think the Bengals and the Dolphins will see their seasons end this weekend. When we come back, we'll take a look at the NFC because the South is up for grab. In the North and the 1 seeds up for grabs. And then we'll take a look at what the playoff seeding looks like if the most likely outcomes of these games happen this weekend and how that sets up for every contender. We'll do that when we come back on the Rob Brown Show in the Fan Upstate.
Never underestimate the Cobra, James.
You put some respect on Santino. He is a Royal Rumble record holder.
He's also like the GM or something on TNA.
Is he?
He's got an executive position. I just don't know.
As Santino?
Yes.
As the comedy here?
Yes.
I have to start watching that show again.
You know, one thing I haven't seen his daughter in NXT for a while. Is she hurt?
She I thought she stepped away. I thought her
may not have any room for her right now with his I mean, they have that women's roster is huge.
I hope she's not gone because what a great character.
Well, if she is gone, you know where she'll probably end up at with her dad.
Yep.
more likely. So
I hope not. She is one of my favorite characters in NXT.
there isn't any comedy angles going right now in NXT with the women because they're so serious, and that may have something to do with it. You bring in Julia, you bring in all the people that they brought in. Marcus put in a ticket for me. So we'll see if they end up fixing it. I shouldn't have to take training again. I will, but I shouldn't have to. One of my favorite Christmas gifts this year is Cameron spent way too much money and got me memory for my Xbox Series X. So now I don't have to delete anything.
That's a good gift.
Yeah, I was just like,
That's a good gift.
yes.
That's a good gift.
I immediately went and put a couple games back on that I'll get to playing later. Probably going to take Indiana Jones off. I mean, it took up a lot of room, and I played it for a couple of days. It just, I don't know. It's not enough action for me, I guess. There is another big open world medieval game coming out pretty soon. I forget what it's called, but I think it comes out in February. So I'm guessing you didn't ask Dax why he's a liar.
I did not. Also, I'll tell you this. We started with the conversation about the show and the hurricane relief, and like he had such good answers that we ended up spending most of the interview talking about that in the card. I asked him about
which you should have. I mean that's why it was coming on. So.
And I asked him about, I brought up Rated FTR, and I was like, in a way, you guys are kind of defending AEW from the Death Riders, blah blah blah. And he said, you brought this up, and I understand what you're trying to say. He said, but I really want to make a point here. And he said, I don't think AEW needs to be defended. He said, I think the thing that you can say about Adam Copeland and you can say about us who have been in both companies, like he was openly willing to talk about their time in WWE and all that. He's like, the reason we all love this company is because the mentality of AEW has never been to get WWE. It has always been, let's give more places for professional wrestling to thrive, and that's our goal.
Well, just about. I was going to say, everybody we've had on from AEW has said that, including Orange Cassidy. I mean, all those guys have said that.
We have set up the playoff scenarios in the AFC. Let's run through the playoff scenarios this weekend. In the NFC, there are far fewer of them. It basically comes down to 2 games. What we know right now is that the Detroit Lions and Minnesota Vikings have both clinched a playoff spot. Their game on Sunday Night Football will determine which one of those 2 teams is the number 1 seed and will receive the overall bye. The other team will obviously go in as the wild card, as the 5 seed. The NFC North is on the line. It is Lions v. Vikings. The winner gets the number 1 seed and home field advantage. The other becomes a wild card team. The only other playoff scenario in play this weekend is the NFC South title holder. The Atlanta Falcons are 8-8. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers are 9-7. For Tampa, it is very easy. They are on the road against New Orleans. They win the game. They are NFC South champions. For the Falcons, they need a little help. They have got to win the game, and they have got to have the New Orleans Saints beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. That loss against Jaden Daniels and the Commanders last weekend for the Falcons is going to haunt them this weekend, because I am going to go ahead and say on the record, there is a 0% chance that the New Orleans Saints are beating the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. It's just not going to happen. So they are likely winning that division. So let's take a look now. I went last night when I was hosting BetMGM Tonight, and I drew up what the playoff bracket looks like if the most likely outcome, in my ever so humble yet frequently correct opinion, takes place. If the most likely outcome of every game takes place, when you consider teams that have shut it down, teams that are rolling out starters or versus backups versus all the backups versus a backup quarterback, yada, yada, yada. If the most, I think, likely outcomes end up coming to fruition. Great one. This is how I think it shapes up. In the AFC, Kansas City is the 1 seed. Buffalo is the 2 seed. Baltimore would be the 3 seed. Houston is the 4 seed. That would make Pittsburgh the 5 seed, the LA Chargers the 6 seed, and the Denver Broncos the 7 seed. I'm going to tell you right now, respectfully to the Texans, the Steelers, the Broncos, and maybe the only team that kind of breaks it is I think the Chargers are interesting. But I got to think, great one, your Super Bowl contender out of the AFC is coming from that top group of 3. Kansas City, Buffalo, or Baltimore. One of those 3 teams is going to the Super Bowl. Of the bottom 4 teams, Houston, Pittsburgh, the Chargers, and Denver, though there is a chance Miami and Cincinnati can squeak in, I very much doubt it. Of those bottom 4 teams, I just don't think any of them are going to Kansas City, to Buffalo, New York, or to Baltimore, Maryland, and stealing a win away from those 3 teams. I think your Super Bowl contenders coming out of the top 3 seeds.
Well, perfect scenario for Kansas City would be for Baltimore and Buffalo, one of them to knock the other one off. And I also think that the Chargers don't sell them short, because one thing, I mean, the fact that they're in the playoff picture again already, with Harbaugh being there 1 year when the team was kind of in shambles, and he has a lot of playoff experience.
It was a while ago, though. Does it translate?
Really, it was a while ago since he coached in the NFL. What did he do this year?
I mean, what he did this year is pretty damn spectacular. Him and Bo Nix are both owed an apology from the Rob Brown Show. Well, at least from my half of the board on the Rob Brown Show. But I agree with you. I still think the winner of the AFC is coming out of those top 3 squads. There is such a, I feel, even though I believe in Justin Herbert, I believe in the Chargers, I think their future is very bright. I still think they're probably a year and a couple of pieces away. There is such a dramatic drop off from Kansas City, Buffalo, and Baltimore down to Houston, Pittsburgh, LA, and Denver. If it was a 1-game series between, say, the Chargers and the Bills, it's like, okay, maybe they could snipe them. But 3 teams got to get sniped before an underdog could get there, and I just don't see it happening.
Well, more than likely, it's Kansas City versus Baltimore for the AFC Championship. I don't believe in Buffalo. I never have. I get all the hype, but I don't think they'll get past Baltimore.
Tough call. Tough call. Over in the NFC, if all the most likely outcomes this weekend come to fruition, your playoffs would shape up this way. Detroit with the 1 seed. They are given a 65% chance to win this game over the Minnesota Vikings. I would hit that with the Lee Corso not so fast, my friend. This Viking team ain't no joke. This Viking team is not a joke. Kevin O'Connell is my NFL coach of the year. I think what Kevin O'Connell has built in Minnesota, if it wasn't for Dan Campbell and the Lions being like so charismatic and fun, we should be talking a lot more about the Minnesota Vikings. But if, according to the betting odds, the most likely outcome happens, Detroit is the 1 seed with the bye. Philly has locked up the 2 seed. The 3 seed becomes the LA Rams, the 4 seed, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now, there is a chance, a reasonable chance, that you could end up with Tampa as the 3 seed and the Rams as the 4 seed. But the most likely outcome is the Rams are the 3 seed, Tampa Bay is the 4 seed. That would send the 5 seed Minnesota to Tampa Bay. It would send the 6 seed Washington out to LA to play the Rams. And it would send the 7 seed Green Bay out to Philly. I think if there is a wild card team that can go to the Super Bowl, both of my favorite 2 picks are over in the NFC. I think it's number 5 Minnesota, and I think it's number 6 Washington with Jaden Daniels in that late game magic he keeps finding. The most likely outcome is obviously Minnesota if it's going to be one of those 2 teams, but Washington gets to go to LA and take on the Rams, a team that I think nobody wants to see in the playoffs, but also a team I think might be, with the exception of Tampa, perhaps one of the weaker overall divisional champions. That being said, I'm going to say right now, so if Minnesota goes to Tampa, I think they win that game by 2 touchdowns.
So I'm curious, how much does this screw everything up for you if Minnesota wins Sunday night?
Not very much, because I really think the Vikings are a damn good football team that, like I said a second ago, aren't getting enough attention. Now, I will say this, I think Detroit can go to Tampa Bay and beat the Buccaneers too. I think the Buccaneers, especially if they are the 4 seed, if they catch the runners up in the NFC North, whether it's Minnesota or Detroit, I still think Tampa's getting bounced in round 1, and the NFC North is going to have 2 teams alive in the divisional round.
I do too, but I'm rooting for the story, and the story would be bigger if it was Minnesota versus Tampa Bay, just because 2 former Carolina quarterbacks would be going at each other in the playoffs.
Yeah, I don't think. I mean, from the national, for us, it would be super.
Yeah, I'm not worried about national. I'm worried about us right here.
Sure,
I think that would be a lot of fun.
I think it would be fun to be able to look at a divisional round of the NFL playoffs where the most recent 2 former Panthers starting quarterbacks are playing against each other in the divisional round of the NFL playoffs. I certainly think, at least hope, that would be a moment. And again, let's take just a second here and point out, I think we got to give credit to Dave Tepper, because after the incident at the bar up in Charlotte, you have not seen hide nor hair of Dave Tepper, and I think he deserves some credit for that. But I think that might be maybe that's a moment for Dave Tepper to look and go, maybe it was me. Maybe, hi, it's me. I'm the problem. It's me. Becomes a more prevalent thought. And maybe that just pushes Dave Tepper to be a little bit more, let Dan Morgan steer the ship, and I'm going to go in a different direction and just go be the business manager, right? I think there's an interesting storyline for us that cover the Panthers, no doubt about that. That being said, and you all know that Lonzo and I are both big fans of Baker, but the injuries to that football team and the fact that, again, I do not trust their head coach in a big spot like this makes me believe the NFC North is getting 2 teams into the divisional round of the NFL playoffs. Is there a great one of the teams we have talked about outside of whoever is runner-up in the NFC North? Is there a wild card team, either Minnesota or Detroit, Washington, Green Bay, Pittsburgh, the Chargers, or the Denver Broncos, Miami or Cincinnati if they were to sneak in at the last second? Is there a wild card team you think is a genuine threat to win the Super Bowl or even show up in it?
Well, as far as showing up in the NFC, it wouldn't shock me if Washington shocked the world, which would make you look really good.
Yeah, you're damn right it would.
After all your praise.
You're damn right it would.
Yeah, it would not shock me if Washington were to pull it off, because they've just been steadily getting better and better and better, and people are not really talking about them that much. So it wouldn't shock me if they upset whoever wins in the North to represent the NFC in the Super Bowl.
And by the way, for a team that has consistently went with Rob Brown's Offensive Rookie of the Year vote to win before the season started, and he's gonna, for a team that has consistently found ways to win close football games, Lonzo, I'm not afraid of this team getting the pressure cooker put them in the playoffs. They have already been in the pressure cooker, and they have won those games. They won the game against Chicago. They won with a walk-off against Atlanta to keep their hopes alive last week. Like, I like this team a lot. I agree with you. I think Washington could be the team that kind of takes people by surprise.
But in the end, and yes, I am a fan, so whatever. Kansas City is.
Yes, it doesn't matter. Kansas City.
No. Let me break it down just a little. Kansas City has steadily gotten healthy over the season, as opposed to, and I know that Mahomes has an ankle, but they've gotten receivers back, they've gotten players back. They've been playing better football in the last month than they have the entire season, and they only lost one game. And they know what to do when they get in the playoffs. And they got the first round bye. Will Rust get them? I don't think so.
It's fair. It's fair. We are going to talk some more NFL because coming up in the next segment of the show, we are going to be joined by a voice that you hear on this radio station on the regular. He is the executive producer of BetMGM Tonight, which airs every weeknight from 7 to 11 on this and fine Odyssey stations everywhere. The former executive producer of Bet for the Cycle with myself and Cody Decker every Saturday from noon to 4 on the BetQL Network. He is the hatin' ass one, hatin' ass Mario, joining us coming up in the next segment. That is after Lonzo seduces you with this sports flash.
I don't know. You cut yourself off. Does that count? 3 of the 4 spots in the college football playoff semifinals have been claimed, and the winner of today's Sugar Bowl will decide the last. Texas escaped Arizona State in double overtime with 39-31 win on the back of a 322 yards and 3 touchdown passes from Quinn Ewers, outdueling Cam Scattaboo's 143 yards. 2 touchdown rushing day. The Ohio State University destroyed number 1 Oregon with a 41-21 win behind Will Howard's 319 yards, 3 touchdown day, including a 187 and 200, 2 touchdowns, rather 200. That would have been a lot to Jeremiah Smith. Penn State is in after a 31-14 win over Boise State behind Caden Allen's 134 rushing yards. The Nittany Lions await the winner of today's Georgia versus Notre Dame matchup. Make sure you tune in this Saturday at 3:30 as Furman takes on UNC Greensboro. I know we're on the stream. I don't care. This is dumb that I have to take the training again when it works for me on one station.
But on
These people are just saying, "Well, do this, and I can't let you." I'm already in the program. That's just stupid.
Let's get old Mario in here.
I'm sure Mario doesn't have a problem with the corporate people.
With corporate America?
No, with our corporate.
Oh.
Yes.
He said, "Oh," and
Yeah.
got quiet real quick.
All right, because I work on two stations, and we just switched all text lines. I have access to one of them. I just don't this one. But because I don't have the one for this one, I have to take training. Even though I have it on the other one, and I've already taken the training, they won't give me access on this station, which is a smaller station compared to the other station, until I take training again.
That's
This is procedural corporate crap where it's just, well, just fill out the thing, do the thing. All right, what's the next ticket? Yeah, fill out the thing, do the next thing. Without, I mean, it's just dumb.
what happened to the cowboy hat, Rob?
I wasn't feeling it this morning when I was getting ready, man.
Fair.
So Cowboy is.
I wore it last night to host BetMGM tonight,
Yeah.
and I looked damn good. I got a new cowboy hat.
Okay.
I got a beige one to wear with the brown because I got black already.
But then you would have to wear earbuds here and all that kind of stuff.
And that was the other thing was in order to rock the cowboy hat, I have to do the upside down thing, and they slip off the ears. So what I do need to go get is the Cody Decker FBI earpieces that I can wrap over the ear. Then the cowboy hat might become the thing. But I've also made the sunglasses a thing here on the show. So I'd really have to decide which one is my personality, or do I do both?
New year, new you. You know,
New year, new me.
Whatever you want.
Face tattoos on its way. And that's going to be the new thing. I can't wait for that.
Robbie Post Malone Brown incoming.
Yeah, let's see that.
The fourth, the final hour of the show goes now. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, the Rob Brown Show on the radio. It is the fan upstate, Rob Brown, the great one, Lonzo, with you here on the first show of 2025, ladies and gentlemen. A quarter of the way done with the 2000s already. Yes, it does make me feel old as hell. So does looking at the baby face of our next guest, a man for whomst I can take all the credit for his success in his career. He is the executive producer of BetMGM Tonight, which you can hear right here on this and fine Odyssey stations around the country. He is also the producer and host of like 15 other shows around the network. Mario Heron, a.k.a. Hatin' Ass Mario, joining us here on the show.
By the way, since he cut the hair, it's very cherub looking.
I told you, dude.
It's
somehow he went
yeah.
from looking 16 years old on the air to 9 with the haircut.
I will say I have like lost years of life with the haircut. Like I do look in the mirror and go, God, why do I look like I'm 17? I'm getting carded a lot more. That's like for sure. I got in last time I got carded, they asked for 2 forms and everyone else got 1 form, and that hurt the ego a little bit. I was like, all right, come on, man. Please.
All right, I got it. I'll solve it for you. Soul patch. That's what you need.
Get you a little Van Gogh
do the soul
going on.
patch.
Yeah.
It'll work.
We saw one time many moons ago, Hatin' Ass Mario show up on the air with his attempt at a beard.
No,
Not
it
great.
it was at the time I was dating someone who loved it when I had a mustache, and I looked back on it. I was like, boy, did that look bad.
Yeah.
That
The
was-
only thing
Yeah, that was bad.
that mustache made me think was that you're not allowed within 500 yards of a school.
Hey man, don't change for her. If she doesn't like you how you are, she's not the right one for
Yes,
you.
Lonzo, because men definitely don't change for the ladies. That's a thing that
All right, all right.
don't do.
All right,
Men would never do that.
disregard left at the altar guy. Okay, disregard that guy.
I am actively married.
You are
man.
now. You are now.
Actively married.
You are now actively. and listen to someone who's been married for 32 years. I mean, and anyway, listen to Rob all you want. It'll be a while before.
I mean, look, he's listened to me so far, and he's the executive producer of a nationally syndicated show.
yeah.
so-
he was already executive producer before you met him. So I don't know how you helped.
Yeah,
him.
but look at him now. That's all me. You're welcome, by the way, Mario.
Thank you. Thank you.
Although that looks like a plain white tee. I don't know if I would.
It is. You
Yeah,
are
this-
kind of basic white guy today. Let me
Yeah,
let me guess. You got
This
you
is
got
not- first
joggers
off-
and slides on right now.
Okay, joggers are very comfortable. Okay, so let's not, crap on them. And this is not a white tee. This is actually like a cream color, and this is
It's egg
it's
white.
got like lines in it. It's pretty nice.
Someone saying it's actually an eggshell is the exact person who grows a soul patch
No,
and a mustache for a lady.
he's trying to.
I'm
he's
not
trying to.
growing a soul patch.
He's trying to
I can tell you that.
contrast. He's trying to contrast with his plain background back there by making it glow a little bit with that color
Mhm.
white.
I do need I gotta figure out the background. If there's one thing I'm really not good at in this world, it's figuring out a background. I don't know why. I have no vision for it. It's like decorating. If you looked at my apartment for decorations, it's brutal. Like I just don't. I have no insight for it.
Oh no, we know.
Okay.
We know.
Well,
Yeah.
hurtful.
Yeah. I mean, but not incorrect.
Still up sports stuff, man. I mean, come on.
It's a lot of so it's a Conor McGregor. There's a Conor McGregor poster. There's a Tiger Woods.
That made it worse, not better, dude. Why Conor McGregor?
Because it was it's a photo after he went 2-time double champ, which was like the peak McGregor. Now McGregor stinks. And then I have
By the way, there's
Jordan
nothing wrong with
Magic.
being a fan of the double champ. Now, out of the octagon, not really a good dude, but in the
Awful
octagon
guy.
for a while, he was the man.
I
The
mean,
man. Thank you.
Yeah,
Like,
for
I'm Twitter
Rob,
posters.
Rob is jealous of his oratory
no, he's just
skills.
he's
I
just
haven't-
kind of a gigantic piece of crap. That's all.
I have an Israel Adesanya one too.
There you go.
That's my favorite. I love Adesanya.
I mean,
Got a fight coming up February 11th.
I'm better with that. All right, let's get to some NFL talk here. Hayden asked Mario, we go into this weekend. There's really not a ton up for grabs. We talked a little bit about this last night because your guest host on BetMGM tonight was not just dashingly handsome, but also quite eloquent in his discussion of the NFL. But we'll get your thoughts on it now. Baltimore playing to win the AFC North. They just need a win against Cleveland. The Steelers need a win against Cincinnati and a Ravens loss. So I think at this point, pretty much in the bag, the Ravens are winning this division. The interesting team here is Cincinnati. They play Saturday at 8. The two games outside of their game, Denver versus the backups of the Chiefs and Miami taking on the Jets. Those games won't matter to Cincinnati if they don't knock off the Steelers. Is there a legitimate chance that Cincinnati ends up in the playoffs despite coming into the final week of the season at 500?
No, because of the Denver thing. I'd be shocked if Denver ends up losing to Kansas City. And I think Bengals, by the way, lose this weekend to the Pittsburgh Steelers. I know like the Steelers have been struggling, but I am not going to bet on Mike Tomlin to lose 4 games in a row. Like I'm just not going to do it right before the playoffs. That doesn't seem very Mike Tomlin thing to do. I think they're going to go in for a statement win and beat the living snot out of the Bengals. Like, look, that defense is still nothing to run home about in Cincinnati. You have to rely on Joe Burrow to, do crazy miracle things. And let's be honest, if Denver Broncos didn't have a rookie QB starting for them, do they win that game against the Broncos? Like, do they win that? I mean, against the Bengals, do they win? Like I screwed that up, but you get what I mean. If the Bengals, face the team. Let's say that was the Chargers. The Chargers win that game. They did do that. Let's say that's maybe even against, I would even say the Dolphins. Like, do the Dolphins win that game with the healthy Tua? Like, what happens in that? They lucked out in it. I don't think it's going to luck out again against Pittsburgh. I think they win that game. Joe Burrow has had an MVP level season. Should he be in the conversation? He should, but his team's not good enough, so he's just not going to win it. He's, he should be at the dinner, but he's not going to pick up the check. You know what I mean? So like it's just not going to do it for him. And I think the Bengals go home at the end of week 18 and they start Cancun a little early this year.
Yeah, no, I'm going to ride with that. 10% chance that they sneak their way in. But here's the follow-up. I asked this to Lonzo earlier. I'll ask it to you. If you are Kansas City taking on Denver, yeah, it's a rival. Yeah, it's a divisional matchup. You're already locked in at the 1 seed. Don't you absolutely throw this game to make sure that Bo Nix is in and not Joey B and risk it becoming Burrowhead Stadium again, because it feels like if the Bengals get in, it's because the second half's been good. They've carried a bunch of momentum. If I'm Kansas City, not only am I playing Carson Wentz, I'm grabbing 21 dudes in jerseys out of the stands and sending them out there to play. I'm punting on this game to keep Joe Burrow out. I'm not even risking that the 2 games on Sunday go the way that the Bengals need them to go.
I'm with you. And like the Chiefs already came out, you know, Mahomes isn't playing. It's going to be Carson Wentz starting at quarterback. I'm imagining Kelsey's probably not going to play. Like I imagine more of their guys are probably going to rest in this game. And you make a good point. If you have a chance to keep a guy that's playing his best football out of the playoffs, you know, you take that risk, right? You can go, yeah, I don't want to face a hot Burrow there. I don't want to have to face a Jamar Chase, a T. Higgins, you know, kind of get that out. And I'm fascinated too to what happens in Cincinnati like this offseason. Like, do they finally say goodbye to Zach Taylor? Like, you know, besides that Super Bowl run, it's kind of been touch and go over there in Cincy. And, you know, how much longer do you want to stay in a season or stay in an era where every year you start off 0-3 and you just go, well, it's just another slow start for us. But don't you want to start off hot? Like, you know, I bet you'd like to have a couple of those early games back right now. Like you'd be in the playoffs if you had those back. So if you're able to keep one of the best QBs out, I think that's, you know, very, very fair. And like, look, the AFC, man, it's a gauntlet. Like it really is. Like from Josh Allen to Patrick Mahomes to Herbert with Harbaugh. That's going to be a hard game for anyone too. And then you have a Mike Tomlin team you have to face. Like the only team that's kind of, you know, a cupcake team to play. And like, if you get them in the first round, I think, you know, it's an automatic bet on them and fade is the Texans. Like if you get the Texans in the first round, I think God bless you. Everyone wants that, you know, 5th seed to face them. But if you have to go, at Baltimore or at Buffalo, like those two might be big-time death sentences.
Mario Herron from the BetQL Network joining us here on the Rob Brown Show and the Fan Upstate. We got into this conversation a little bit last night. I gave my teams on the show last night, but if I asked you, Mario, assuming the most likely outcomes or the betting line favorites all win this weekend, that would make your wild card teams in the AFC, Pittsburgh, the Chargers, and the Broncos. There is the potential for Miami and Cincinnati to get in, though it's a lot more likely they don't. In the NFC, Minnesota, Washington, and Green Bay. Taking a 14-win Minnesota team off the table because that's the obvious answer. So Washington, Green Bay, the Broncos, the Chargers, and the Steelers. Is there a wild card team you think could get hot and go on a run to not win, but to the Super Bowl?
So I know they struggled against playoff teams, but their draw could be pretty beneficial depending on how healthy Jalen Hurts is. The Green Bay Packers. Like if you face Philly and they're a talented enough team and you have, you know, Matt LaFleur is a good enough coach and you go there and they do not have Jalen Hurts and they really have to lean on Saquon Barkley and they have to, you know, lean on maybe Kenny Pickett, who also is hurt right now too. So you have a backup QB who's not 100%, probably about 70%. And you have, you know, your defense isn't bad. And then on the other side of the football, your QB is extremely, extremely talented, who has lots of weapons, and you have a great offensive minded head coach. That could be a team I think that could be a little dangerous. And like if they get past Philly, if you can win in Philly, then I'm sorry, but you could sure as hell win in LA against the Rams, which, by the way, that would probably be almost a home game for the Green Bay Packers because of how well they travel. And then you face, you know, if you don't face the Rams, you'd face the Commanders. So you're going to face a rookie QB in the second round. I would take that. Just based off draw, I think the Packers would kind of be the best go. And then, you know, let's say they get past those two games. For sake of argument, Detroit's over there, you know, waiting for you in the NFC Championship. Detroit has to beat you 3 times. 3 times. I know it's in Detroit, but that's a tall ass to do, right? Like it's very hard to beat a team 3 times. So already you kind of have that going for you. That's kind of like the route. And if you had to make me choose between, you know, those wild card teams, I think Green Bay is kind of set up for that better. Do I think they're going to do that? No, but right now luck is kind of on their side, if you will. Like they could get a pretty good hand here and, you know, end up banking it pretty far. And as long as Matt LaFleur doesn't do something bad and, you know, I don't know, give Hall of Fame quarterback a lot of time to win a game, they'll be okay.
You brought him up a couple of times. I have zero belief in the Green Bay Packers. I think the Green Bay Packers are the most overhyped team in the NFL right now. I think they're good. I want to be clear. I think they're good, but I don't put them up there in the category with Philadelphia. I don't put them in the category with Minnesota, Detroit. I don't put them in the category with Buffalo, Baltimore, and Kansas City. They are, and this was pointed out last night, and I forget who it was on the show that pointed it out. They played 5 playoff teams this year, their own 5 against the 5 playoff teams. They have not. They went on that little mini run, and I broke that down. My man, that mini run was against NFL teams with a win-loss record of like 42% when you book it. It's not that impressive. This feels to me like a team that is a bit of a mirage. I think Jordan Love's good. I think this team is going to get better, but the folks that are putting Green Bay down as a potential dark horse out of the NFC, I think are way misguided.
I completely understand that. I get your point, and I'm gonna tell you why I'm short-sighted in that. I grew up a Bears fan. I've done this before where I've doubted the Packers, where I go, no, it's not their year. They're not this, they're not that, and then I just get kicked right in the what, and I cry for pain and cry for my mom. So I've done this dance before. I don't believe in Green Bay, but I do understand it, right? And by the way, very, very young team, right? This is a team that's still kind of, I guess, finding their identity in a way. But, man, I mean, if they get a, 50% backup QB, if they get a rookie QB in the second round, that's pretty nice. I understand they struggle against, playoff teams. Like you said, they're 0-5, but, playoff time's different. And, Jordan Love versus Kenny Pickett, I would take Jordan Love, obviously. Jordan Love versus, Jaden Daniels, I would take Jordan Love, obviously. There's things that could happen for him. Do I think it's going to happen? No. I have a lot more faith in other teams in the NFC. I think it's Detroit or nothing really in there. And I think Detroit wins this weekend against the Minnesota Vikings. But hey, I don't know. We'll see. The team that's really confusing to me, Rob, that I didn't be able to figure out all year is every time I bet against them, they win. Every time I bet with them, they lose, is the Los Angeles Rams. I mean, they just kick me around like no other.
That is funny. Decker and I were having the conversation last Saturday on Bet for the Cycle about which team do you want to see the least out of the wild card spot in the playoffs, and both of us went with the LA Rams. That's a team that feels like with Sean McVay, they can kind of figure out the strengths to pull Puka Nacua after the injury is started to heat back up. Anytime Nacua is doing well, the numbers come up for Cooper Kupp. Kyron's been a monster behind the line of scrimmage. You add on top of all of that Matt Stafford is still defying age and doing Matt Stafford things. That, to me, if you asked me to pick one, the two I was going with out of the NFC, the Washington Commanders behind Rob Brown's Rookie of the Year pick, Jaden Daniels, you're welcome, and the LA Rams are the two teams I'm most afraid of.
And the Rams, in the past 3 weeks, they haven't allowed an opponent to score more than 9 points. And I know those, offenses, it's the Niners, Jets, and Cardinals, but, that defense is stepping up really, really big. And let's say they kind of carry the momentum into playoff time. If you can't score more than, 14, 17 points against a Sean McVay offense, you're not going to win that game, right? You mentioned the weapons that they have with Kyron, with Puka, with Kupp, and Stafford's, Hall of Fame quarterback with one of the best offensive minds going with Sean McVay. That's a hard team to beat, man. And they have experience in doing it before. So they have leaders in that locker room that go, hey, this is how it's done. This is how we do it. And let's believe in each other and get this done. I wouldn't want to face them. The Commanders, I'm going to be honest with you, I think I'd feel a little bit more comfortable in facing the Commanders.
I don't disagree. I still don't want to risk Jaden Daniels in a high-pressure game because all that dude does is win. It's pretty impressive. Hayden as Mario Heron from the BetQL Network. He is the executive producer of BetMGM tonight, which you can hear on this and find Odyssey stations everywhere, every weeknight from 7 to 11 p.m. Joins us every Thursday at 9 a.m. to talk some NFL football. We'll start transitioning to the NBA in the next couple of weeks as we head towards the Super Bowl, just about a month and some change away. My man, good to have you as always, Big Dog. Thanks for coming by, partner.
Thanks as always, and I'd like to make a public announcement. Rob Brown needs to wear a cowboy hat 24/7.
I don't disagree. They did base the character Rip from Yellowstone off of me, so that makes a lot of sense.
They did. Yes.
It sounds like an old man show that old people watch.
No, it is a show about cowboys who don't know anything about cowboys. made for the ladies because my wife is head over heels about Rip, to the point that I'm relatively sure she's trying to dress me like him without telling me she's doing that.
It's also the only show with Cowboys where they talk in the biggest like riddles of all time. Like I've never heard of Cowboys. It's
real dumb. It's real dumb. I tried
yeah.
it, and I don't think she's listening, so I can get away with it. I worked on a farm for 3 summers. It's, you know what it is? It's the Big Bang Theory for Cowboys. Like Big Bang Theory is a show about nerds written by people like, oh, we think this is what nerds are like. And it's like, if you're a nerd, you're like, yo, bleep this show. This is really dumb. If you've ever worked on a ranch before, you watch Yellowstone and you're like, this is the dumbest thing I've ever seen. And unfortunately, that's me.
Yes. Like that, if you had, like in the show, if someone's like, oh, how was your day? It's like, you know, when a cow is about to die, they look to the stars, and then it's like, what? Like it's that's like half the stuff. I'm like, this is insane.
If you've ever been around people who work on the ranch, their goal is to get the information across in as few words as possible. They're just gonna go fine, and that's it. It's I agree, it's dumb. And you know it's dumb because if Mario and I agree on something outside of the world of sports, good chance it's true. Good chance.
Yes.
Hating ass Mario Heron from the BetQ Network. Big dog, have a good show tonight. Appreciate you, my man. Talk to you next week.
Always a pleasure. Love you.
It's mine. When we come back, Fight Club with the great one, Lonzo. We talk some pro wrestling next on the Rob Brown Show in the Fan Upstate.
Congratulations to your Saints. No Pro Bowlers.
I thought
talking to you.
Oh no, I thought you were saying I had to read there.
No.
0 Pro Bowlers, no playoff. We're gonna get the floor wiped with us by Tampa Bay. We lose to the friggin' Raiders. Like everything sucks and I'm dying.
Wow.
Nice. Happy New Year. Start to 2025.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, and here's my favorite part. You know what the favorite part is? We're going to be worse next year. Like, we can't get better. We don't have the money or the resources to get better. We're going to be trash again next year. And I know it. Do you understand what it's like for me to go, the next time that I might be able to watch my team be good is September of 2027?
Hey, just let me say, come on over. Okay.
No.
My college team's got a shot at winning the national championship. My NFL team's got a chance to three-peat. Come on.
Lonzo's a bandwagon fan.
We got room. Yeah, right. Come on. Come on. We got room.
Life's too good for you.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's going to be. I mean, what's wrong with that? What's wrong with having everything good?
That's true.
I got nothing.
It took me nearly the majority of my life before I finally saw the Chiefs win the Super Bowl. I mean,
I will say, I remember there's a family I knew, they were Chiefs fans, and like one of the kids is like 12 right now, and dad was like, "You have no idea how brutal it was."
Yeah,
the kid's like, every Sunday, he's like, "We just win," and he's like, "You have no idea what it took to be here." I loved it. I was like,
there are the fan base like I think of Tampa Bay forever, and then John Gruden won the Super Bowl with them. I mean, they went forever, and then suddenly they started winning a bunch. I mean, there are teams like that where people my age or older have went through their entire life and never seen winning. So I'm going to enjoy it.
Yeah, enjoy it. Watch the tapes. I still watch North Carolina 2009 tapes just to feel something.
I don't go that far. I mean, that's like, history. Who cares about history? I'm not gonna.
If you don't care about history, it's gonna repeat itself.
Okay, I was wondering if you could get it right. That's just
I couldn't get it right.
He was spinning that one around in his head for a second.
Yeah,
He's like, oh God, what's the phrase?
Do I want to risk it?
Yep.
Yeah. All right, I'll see you, fellas.
All right, big dog. Appreciate you. See you, buddy. Love Mario.
He thought you weren't paying attention.
I was
and
listening.
he's wondering if I would let him.
As soon as I heard the setup for the reference, I'm like,
like,
oh, he's going to blow it. He's going to blow it and never hear the end of it.
I was rooting for him. I think he said it close enough that it worked. Three friends in the next break. I asked my question to the powers that be.
Yeah.
The powers that be asked the question of corporate.
Nice.
Because it's stupid. Why? You know what I would respect is if the power, if corporate came back and said, because I said so. I mean, I'd be okay with that. I mean, just put the drop down on my page. Who's the favorite between the Buckeyes and Texas? Is that out
You
yet?
guys are 6.5 point favorites and minus 210, 200 on the money line.
Kept that fire through 2 games. If they can do it for 2 more, then they can win the whole thing. Let's keep the defensive intensity. I mean, that's a big deal. Welcome to the Fight Club, the first one of 2025. Haven't been around for a couple of weeks just because the way
Sounded so dramatic.
the way things went. So a lot of things to catch up on if we were looking back, but we're not looking back. We're looking forward. 2024 is in the rear view, except for I am curious. Would that interview with Dax Harwood, would it have been different if I was here?
No. And I'll tell you why.
Do you think I would have the guts to do what I've needed to do?
I don't know that you would have. What I do know is when we started that interview with Dax Harwood, it opened up with Dax talking about hurricane relief and how much it meant to him to not just have a show in the Carolinas, but have a show in the Carolinas that was based around the ability to raise money and help for the places that he knows and loves. He was very complimentary of the upstate. He was very complimentary of Asheville, et cetera. He was so damn laid back and cool and nice out of the gate that I think even if you did have the guts to bust him up on the you and Cash are liars take, I don't think you would have done it because he was so damn cool.
I had the opportunity. You told me you were going to have him on. I could have jumped on, but I was on vacation.
Yep.
And I was busy, so I couldn't do it. Plus, I still wouldn't have done it because I was on vacation. And when I'm on vacation, I try to stay as far away from radio as I possibly can.
Correct. I will tell you as an aside from that, he did tell me that he will be here tomorrow. He'll be here tomorrow. He's going to do some time with the Rise guys. And he said that he was going to, after our interview, he's like, I'm going to see if I can carve out maybe a segment to come down and sit with you guys in the studio. So we may have him back on face to face tomorrow.
Wow.
And then you can tell him he's a liar and a troll.
You don't think I'll do it?
I don't know. I just know
You don't think I'll do it?
I just know I'm sitting on this side of the desk
The
when you
thing
do it.
is, if I do it and it turns into something, I can't go anywhere. My leg's messed up.
That's true.
That's
true.
Most people when they look for confrontation, they either know that they could take the guy across from them or they can run really fast, and I can't do either. I still will say it.
That's fair. We'll see. I mean, we'll see if they find the time. He did tell me that he's booked for a pretty solid in and out, but he and his handler are going to try to find the time to come down.
I have been chastised, looked upon negatively because I say I don't like it because they're liars, and people get mad at me, including you and Rob Young from Borderlands Comics and Games. Why don't you like them? Because they're liars. I mean, if they had gone through their entire career after they said no flips, just fists, and that's what they did, I'd be on board. But I've seen them flip. I've seen them. Oh, this is rare, them going to the top rope, and they do it a lot. Okay? I mean, don't come up with a moniker and then not stick to it. All right? We are the best sports show in the state of South Carolina.
And sometimes we're not.
No, we stick to that. We stick to that. The other thing was It was a management snafu we're going to go with. All right. Speaking of AEW, I still got time to get to WWE. What does AEW need to do to get better in 2025?
Oh, we're doing some New Year's resolutions here.
Well,
Huh?
we did that a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
But as far as this goes, just for AEW, because there's been a drop off, not only in attendance, and it's been documented. There's been a drop off in attendance, but there's been a drop off between us as far as how much we've paid attention to.
I don't disagree with that. You are correct. And in fact, I realized that when I was doing that interview on Monday. I'm like, man, we had just had a back-to-back of 2 pay-per-views. Last night was simulcast, but on Max as well, of 2 pay-per-views in 4 days, and we like barely touched it leading out. Now, granted, you were on vacation and we had all the different scheduling stuff over the holidays and whatever. But I think there's a couple of things. Number one, I think that they need to be a little bit more varied. It just always seems like it's the same stars being recycled into their top-notch storylines, right? Like it's like as soon as they get out of one, you've had this story going with Moxley and Orange Cassidy, and then the next thing I know, here's Hangman, here's OC, here's so-and-so, here's this, here's that, the other. Like it's just the same guys being rotated, and very, very rarely you having somebody jump up. I don't understand, for instance, why Swerve Strickland did such a great job as your bannerman for a second, and now he's just right back to going back, and now he's feuding with Ricochet, who has showed up and really done nothing.
By the way, I gotta say, I like what they're doing with Ricochet.
I think the potential's there
because they know how annoying he is on the mic and how nerdy he is, and they're just letting him go there and be that guy to the point of annoyance. I still say he ends up in the Hurt Syndicate.
You may not be wrong, but I think in a spot like that, what you have to be very careful of, and this is something we've talked about, there's a term for it. I think you have to be very careful of getting to the point where you risk taking a guy and putting him into what we call X-Pac heat, right? Like, we're not chanting boo because we don't like your heel character. We're chanting boo because you're just bad at this. Like, you're just bad at this, and you're keep getting rammed into the forelight. I think there is the potential for Ricochet to be very good down the stretch. But I mean, it's not hitting the way that I had hoped that he had hit in the first place. But all of that being said, I think you got to spur. And I think the other thing is, and I think you're seeing this with, for instance, Moxley, who is one of the guys that we know is very much in control of his creative. I think AEW made one major change that had them take that step back. And that change is it got to the point where Tony Khan started wanting to be the booker, and stopped letting the wrestlers do the creative in the wrestling. And I think you got to get back to that. Go back to what made you great out of the gate, which was you let the wrestlers who understand the business tell your wrestling stories before you decided to take over. And I got a lot of respect for Tony Khan continuing to push ahead, but like, sometimes even people who are good at what they do make a mistake. And I think him taking over too much creative control has caused this whole thing to take a step back. By
the way, I don't want them to fail. I want them to succeed, because when they succeed, it causes competition. When there's competition, it's more entertaining. And we were talking off the air about how you said Dax mentioned how AEW is and how it's a place for wrestlers. Orange Cassidy said the same thing. Anyone from AEW we've had on is all talked about what a great place it is to work and how they're able to be creative and all that kind of thing. So I want that to continue. But declining attendance and stuff, eventually that's going to be a problem.
Well, okay. So this is a conversation that's been had a couple of times, and it's a fair one to have, but the answer is declining attendance only becomes a problem if the TV network that is filming and putting the show out decides it's a problem. You could do, and we've had this conversation about the NFL and college football. If tomorrow every college and NFL team was told they're not allowed to have fans anymore, football ain't going anywhere.
Yeah, we've seen that already.
So. In-person attendance. We had COVID. We had lockdown. Nobody could do anything, and football still thrived. Why? Because at the end of the day, the only thing that matters is how many eyeballs are on the product at the crib. And if 70,000, 80,000 people can't go to a football game, that's just 80,000 more people that are going to be watching the television show at the house. So the question is, what's viewership doing? And the answer for AEW is right now it's plateaued. It's not going down, but it's not going up either. And the question is, do you fall into that trap of not stepping forward is stepping backwards? And to TV networks, that's true. But this deal they're on right now, Lonzo, like it's a relatively new TV deal for them. So I don't think they're in that danger yet. But I absolutely do think they are going to have to go back to what I thought was the best era of AEW, which was those first 2 or 3 years where there weren't bookers. There were wrestlers, and they got told, you and you do a storyline, and they wrote their stuff out, and it was phenomenal.
All right, speaking of networks, let's talk about the biggest move and the most advertised move in the history of all of wrestling, Raw on Netflix. Do you recall ever this? I mean, this thing has got to be magnificent. It's got to be amazing. It's got to be any adjective that you could think of describing this move. It's got to be all that with all the hype around it.
Well, and okay. First off, no, it doesn't, because they've already signed the contract and there's a gazillion dollars that's already there. The question is, does it stay there after however long this contract is, 2-3 years, whatever that contract is? But the reality is, I think what you're going to get here, and I don't think it's going to be like, have to change the rating or whatever, but we know the rating's going up to what? Just regular PG, or PG-13, whatever that next step is. I think you're going to get the occasional additional and maybe one more and a couple of down the line. But I don't think it's going to become like some dramatic rated X Netflix style show. The question mark is, they're setting the tone high. We know we're getting Cena on a Monday night. We know we're getting Tribal Combat.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to talk about.
Right.
So Cena's tour starts, his farewell tour. From my understanding, from what I've seen, he's putting aside his entire slate is clean and just for wrestling this final year. That he's not filming anything, he's not doing anything. He's just going to wrestle.
Yeah. It's you're bringing that heat. You're bringing Tribal Combat. You're bringing a couple of the top notch women's
Tribal
feuds.
Combat. Who you got between Roman Reigns and Solo Sikoa? Because it would shock me if Solo still won.
It would not shock me, but I would also say that I think a chunk of it is going to be, this storyline's not dying till WrestleMania, right? And if you have either one of the two of them get a clean win over the other, there's two ways you do it. Either Solo gets the clean win and Roman goes on his reflective tour, and maybe he goes on the apology tour that McIntyre wants him on, or Roman gets the clean win, in which case, in what world is anybody following Solo Sikoa? Now I got a bunch of individual dudes out there. I don't think you're getting anything clean. I think this is going to be chaos, and I think it's still leading up to that WrestleMania
Also,
match.
Roman's going to end up being on Raw, and Solo's going to end up being on SmackDown. So they have to, do you take it away from them and do it? I don't know. I think
the other thing, and sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. I think the other thing is going to be, I think for at least the first handful of weeks, maybe months of Raw on Netflix, I think it's going to be a combined roster. I think you're going to get a lot of SmackDown people over. I think they are going to try to jack the ratings.
The is open now.
Exactly.
So
that's the thing. They keep saying that, but they don't tell you what it means. Yeah. I honestly think that means guys can just go back and forth, right? Sami Zayn's been on both shows for the last 5 weeks running now. I think it's going to be SmackDown guys will show up, and it'll be like a surprise. Oh, look who's here tonight, coming over from SmackDown. It's so-and-so. I think you're going to see a lot of bleed over early just to kind of get the initial ratings through the roof and hook people to keep them coming back.
All right. Speaking of which, this is PLE caliber matches coming up. What are they going to do next week? Are they doing too much? So, Women's World Championship it's a last woman standing match between Liv and Rhea. I'm going to go ahead and say I think Liv keeps the belt, and I think Charlotte. It's time for Charlotte to come back, and I think Charlotte costs Rhea Ripley.
Why? Okay, I'm gonna tell you right now, you're not gonna like this, and I don't care. You're wrong. If Charlotte comes back and costs Rhea, Charlotte comes back as a heel, hands down, no questions asked. She is a mega heel if she does it. The question is, then what am I doing with Liv Morgan? Because now I've got Rhea and Charlotte. What am I doing with Liv Morgan without Rhea Ripley involved in that picture? Or do we have a three-way dance where you have Liv kind of as a tweener? I don't know how you handle that.
I think it depends on who's going to be on what show. I still think that's always going to factor in. I know what you're saying. The first couple of weeks, it probably will be a lot on both, but eventually they're going to have to settle because there are champions on each show. And they're going to, I think that's because Charlotte's due to come back. And if she comes back, is she going to cost Is she going to cost Rhea or is she going to cost Liv? She's going to cost Rhea because that's the match people want to see again is Rhea and Charlotte. CM Punk versus Seth Rollins. This was supposed to be WrestleMania last year. We get it on Monday Night Raw this week.
You know who is going to win this. That being said, and I want to be abundantly clear, Seth Rollins is right.
Yes, he is.
Everything he said about CM Punk is absolutely. In fact, I haven't watched all of it yet, but I saw the promo from Monday. And the only thing Seth did that was really a heel was dropping that I've raised a kid and you don't know what that. Okay, like whatever.
Well, he had to respond because of what CM Punk said.
Right.
So
to me, this is one of those spots where, I've said in many years the best heels are the heels that have a point, but then they go too far. Seth has a point and he's not even going too far.
Yeah, we've got 3 heels who have a point. Speaking of which, Drew McIntyre versus Jey Uso. And when I say 3 heels who have a point or 3 babyfaces who have a point, will that lead to a faction like some people speculate with Kevin Owens, with Drew McIntyre, and with Seth Rollins?
That'd be super dope if it does. The problem is I don't think there's a spot for Seth in there right there without cooling off the Punk thing. And that right now is your focus. Now, maybe they change that after Raw, depending on what happens in that. This is going to be interesting because I think like a majority of the matches taking place on Monday Night Raw on Netflix, like a majority of the matches to me need a dirty finish to continue the feud. I don't think you can have a clean finish and continue the feud. But I'll tell you what you can't do on night 1 on Raw is have 5 PLE caliber cards and have 4 of them go to a dirty finish. Like you can't do that. You got to have some winners. So
who wins between Drew and Jey?
I think Drew does.
Yeah,
honestly,
me too.
I think Drew does. I think you've got to keep Drew. I think you got to keep Drew ready to pounce when the bloodline hits their whatever their crescendo is. Drew's got to be right there, and that's why you had to have him beat Sammy the other night, even though the crowd is massively pro Sami Zayn right now. So we'll see. I'll tell you this. It's going to be the first Monday Night Raw that I watch live and in real time in a very long time. I usually watch them on Tuesdays and Wednesdays when I come into work in the morning. I'll be watching Monday Night Live for sure. All right, that's going to do it for Fight Club, which we do every Thursday at 9:20. When we come back, our final couple of thoughts, and then we'll ask what the X is going on and get up out of here for the day. It's Rob, it's Lonzo, it's you, it's the Rob Brown Show, it's the Fan Upstate.
We're friends.
All right, guys, one more live, and we're coming right back to wrap it up. Stay right there for me, please, and thank you. Thanks for bringing in there, dudes and dudettes.
Drive away now in one of our most popular models with 0% APR and 0 payments for 90 days. Only during the Hyundai Getaway Sales Event. Offer ends January 2nd. Call 562-314-4603 for details.
All right, got a few minutes here before we ask what the X is going on and get up out of here for the day. Georgia Notre Dame coming up at 4
By the
p.m.
way, we're gonna have to listen to that. I'm pretty sure he said Rod Brown.
Kane's in my head, man.
No, I'm talking about the
Oh, the
lineup.
announcer guy?
Yeah, I'm pretty
Even better.
sure. I'm
Even
pretty
better.
sure.
Oh, look, right as I say that, right on command, here's Kane popping into the Facebook chat. Kane, you have started a trend, man. It's just the Hot Rod Brown show at this point. And I'm going to keep it a buck with you. If tomorrow I got the call to change markets, I might request to change my stage name to Rod Brown. Genuinely would consider changing my stage name. Rod Brown's not a stage name. That's just my name. All right. Mainly because there's 98 of them in any given city of America. I did not need a stage name when I started the show. But if I ever end up going anywhere else, Kane, I want you to know because of you, there's a very solid chance I might ask my new employers, hey, can I go ahead and make a name change and change my name to Rod Brown to become the Hot Rod Show? Because I do it.
See, this would be perfect for you though. So when people mispronounce Rod, they'd be calling you Rob, and it's perfect psychology.
It really is. The old reverse psychology. Hell yeah. Anyway, I'm Rod. He's Zoe. We're glad to have you. I'm going to call you Bo. If I'm Rod, you're Bo. That's just how it's going to be. Notre Dame taking on Georgia tonight. Zoe, I am taking the Irish here. And I can't figure out if it's because my football thought is good, which is Georgia struggled with mobile quarterbacks this year, right? They struggled with DJ Lagway. They were trailing Florida at the half. They struggled with Nico Iamaleava. They trailed Tennessee at the half. Quarterbacks that can extend plays outside of the pocket have given Georgia fits. And that is kind of what Riley Leonard does. He's a guy that even if the pocket breaks down, he can extend a play by getting north and south and pick it up 4, 5, 6 yards on a scramble. He's not electrifying with a football, but he's good enough. And that's been a problem for Georgia. Then I look at the fact that Notre Dame's defense might be the most unappreciated defense in the college football playoff bracket this year. I think this is the year. And again, if I'm wrong about this, it's just going to be what it is, and I'll eat it tomorrow on the show. But I think this is the year Notre Dame can kind of kill off that narrative that they're just not ready for an SEC team.
No, I think they're coming in with the mentality, backup quarterback. Let's make the quarterback beat us, and he will. That's what I think is going to happen. I think Georgia's backup quarterback is going to come in and torch Notre Dame.
And that's going to be interesting.
Because they're going to be, as most teams do, seem to, of the opinion, well, as backup quarterback, they're just going to hand the ball off a lot. They probably won't do that.
Here's the thing, and we talked about this earlier in the show. We'll talk about it again real quick. Georgia's quarterback has thrown 51 career passes. You are now asking him to jump on board against a good and aggressive Notre Dame defense and lead this team. And on top of that, keep in mind, Georgia's run game is good, but it ain't what it's used to be.
When's the last time Georgia played a game?
The SEC championship 3 weeks ago.
Mhm.
By the way,
So they've had time for him to get some reps. That's all I'm saying.
that's fine. You can't simulate in-game, in championship playoff
You're
reps,
right. You're right. But
You can't.
neither Notre Dame can't simulate that either. So
Not
there
wrong,
we
but
go.
Riley Leonard's been a 3-year starter now. This kid's got 51 passes total. Riley Leonard's thrown 51 passes in a game.
And how many times were they in the playoffs since he's been a star?
Riley Leonard just transferred to Notre Dame this year. His first year on the team. He was playing for way less talented teams.
I think you're missing the point. Notre Dame has no championship experience either.
That's fair.
Because they haven't been in the playoffs in a while.
That's fair. But Riley Leonard's got 50 games under his belt. Gunnar Stockton has 50 passes under his belt. I do think there is something to that, even if it's not as big of a deal as you think I'm making it out to be.
And now, the Rob Brown Show presents Twitter.
By the way, you know if Oregon would have lost the Big Ten championship game, their path to the playoff would have been Clemson, Arizona State, and then maybe Ohio State?
Wow.
We might have teams start throwing conference championship games. I thought about that a couple of breaks ago.
We might. I think the Bulldogs are going to win, but I'm not going to do that barking thing that you do. When you say that grown men don't do that, but then you do that. I don't get it.
For the record, there is a difference between barking in another grown-up's face.
Okay. All right. Well, we're face to face. So, I mean, you're kind of doing it. I realize we're not that close, but still. All right. The first thing that's Xing is targeting.
Okay. So I should have gotten this early in the show. Damn, I should have got into this. I blew it. The targeting controversy and the call in the Arizona State-Texas game. If Arizona State, if that's a targeting call, they get the 15, they get the whole thing. I think Arizona State wins that football game. And the conspiracy theory online right now is that they didn't call it targeting because you would have taken out one of Texas' best defenders. You'd have set Arizona State up for the game winner. And this is ESECPN calling the shots to make it easier for the SEC team to advance and not the Big 12 team out. Here's the thing, Lonzo, and this is going to be maybe the most controversial thing I say this week, and I promise I will address this on tomorrow. Should have done it today. That's my bad and a failure. I don't think it was targeting.
It's absolutely targeting for sure.
I don't think
saw it when it happened. A lot of people were angry about it because it was targeting for sure. Helmet-to-helmet contact. It's the definition of targeting.
Wait. The definition of targeting is not helmet-to-helmet contact. That is not the definition of targeting. The definition of targeting is helmet-to-helmet with the top of the crown with intent to create the contact. This, to me, was a tackle. My man's head is up. He is going in. The wide receiver catches the ball and drops in, and he does not launch into contact.
Clearly dipped his head, and for sure he launched into. If he didn't launch into contact, he would have just got run over.
No. The most and I understand I am going to be in a vast minority on this.
Yes, you are.
But you guys understand if there's anybody who would go after ESECPN for believing a game was rigged, it would be me. I wouldn't have called it targeting either.
I'm not talking about the rigging or anything else. I'm just saying that was definitely a penalty. And there were a lot of penalties that were not called yesterday, but that I thought was.
I agree with that. There was a block in the back on the punt return that was egregious and missed that would have taken a 75-yard touchdown off the board for Texas.
Someone needs to explain to me what holding is, because the defenders for Ohio State getting through on Oregon, when you're reaching out like this and you got someone's arm and it's right there in clear view and no one meant it, that looks like holding to me.
Oh, dude, there was a couple of those in your game. There was a couple of those in Texas, Arizona State. There's one that's, clear as day. The right tackle has got the Arizona State defender from behind wrapped up right in front of the ref, and they don't call it. Ended up being a Texas Quinn Ewers touchdown. And I'm like, what are we doing here? I don't agree. The referee screwed Arizona State in this game, but I don't think it was a targeting.
All right. The next thing that's Xing is Jeremiah Smith.
That dude,
he's legitimately Xing.
Listen, I was on BetMGM last night when we were talking about this game. And I said, not BetMGM, 2 days ago, I was on talking about this game. No, BetMGM tonight. What am I talking about? Game was yesterday.
Well, when you're on so many national
dude, I really
shows,
am. I really am.
You know.
I was on talking about this game in the early part of BetMGM tonight. And my takeaway in that one, Zoe, was I know how the Oregon Ducks can stop Jeremiah Smith. Recruit Optimus Prime and suit him up, because I got nothing else. This kid's a freaking beat. You know what he is? College Calvin Johnson.
He's a freak. freshman.
He's a freak.
That's what he is.
Yeah.
He's a
Look,
freshman.
there was a spot. I've told this story earlier. It was my favorite thing in this game. I was watching McAfee in the first quarter. You had the touchdown early. They come back. It's like 3rd and 9. And McAfee's like, Oregon's in trouble if they can't find a way to stop Jeremiah Smith. At the exact moment, Will Howard uncorks one to him. He is in triple coverage tight. And he just elevates and posterizes the entire damn Oregon defense. And McAfee's like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to tell you, Ducks. You're officially Oregon ducked. I don't know what to tell you. There's no way to stop that. Short of go grab one of the Oregon basketball players and suit him up, I don't know what you do to stop that. And he's right. Ohio State plus 165 to win the Natty, the favorites by a lot now. And it's because of that kid. All right, that's it. Let's take what do you say, about a 20-hour break? We'll come back and do it again tomorrow. Wire to Wire with Cole Bryson and Diesel makes their return this afternoon. Zoe and I are back tomorrow to do it all over again, but better. Thanks for listening, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow on the Rob Brown Show on the Fan Upstate. Later.
No sound. I'm so disappointed. Dude, what are you doing?
I forgot because I hadn't done it all week, so I forgot. I'll have it back tomorrow. As soon as I closed out my board, I'm like, oh, I needed that, but it was too late. It was too late.
I agree with all those things, Steven, especially the last part. He needs to get his computer fixed.
Has it been blurry or is it just slow?
It's both.
Okay. Yeah, it's for whatever reason this computer is using the Wi-Fi and not the office. I'm actually going to go see if Chris is here to take a look at it.
I don't see his car, but that he could have parked at a
Yeah.
different place. He may be off this entire week. I don't know.
Oh, that's true. He did have some vacation to burn. All right, dudes and dudettes, I'm going to go see if I can get that fixed so it's better tomorrow. Thanks for being here. You're all amazing people. We love you. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Tell your friends about us. We're trying to get rich and famous. Goodbye.